Hello and welcome to The Sharpening. I am your host, Josh Peck. Did you know that September is National Preparedness Month? I actually didn't know that at all when I first invited tonight's guest to be on the show, but as coincidence would have it, if such a thing exists, preparedness is exactly what we'll be talking about tonight. Ray Gano, is the executive director of Prophezine and a preparedness survival expert. He is author of a number of books, including Surviving the Coming Storm, The Value of a Preparedness Lifestyle, and the book we'll be talking about tonight, Survive the Coming Storm, Ebola Crisis, Preparing Now Before It Is Too Late. It is my pleasure to welcome to the show Ray Gano. Ray, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good there. How you doing, Josh?
Oh, I'm doing good. Sorry I butchered your name a little bit in the beginning there.
Hey, I mean, Gano, Drano, I mean, I've heard them all, so don't worry about it. It's, I'll answer to anything. You can call me basically anything you want.
Well, I'm glad I didn't call you Ray Drano.
Yeah. I used to be that's what the kids used to call me when I was like in junior high and everything like that, so.
Oh, I hear you there. My last name's Peck, so you can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, man, good deal. Well, it is great to have you on. I'm glad that we were finally able to work all this out. Well, I should say that on my end, I'm glad that I was able to work it out. For the listeners, usually when I have a show, I'll have everything set up before I even invite the guest. Like I actually try to be, as prepared as possible because it just makes things easier. So this time around, of course, when I'm inviting the guy to talk about preparedness on, I invited you on and then was completely unprepared for all the things that came up. So it's been a rough couple of weeks at least, maybe longer. But I have to say I really appreciate your patience and bearing with me through all that.
No problem, man. No problem. And it's, I find that all things work together for good, who's called according to his purpose. And, things just work out the way God wants them to. And
Amen.
So it's,
Well, yeah, I mean, even the whole September thing, because if we would have done this when I first invited you, this would have aired back in August. So
yeah,
even just for that, it worked out.
Yeah, so we're playing and doing this in National Preparedness Month every September,
Yeah.
National Preparedness Month. So, but yeah, cool. I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor, and I'm looking forward to having this real nice little chat here with you. And so, ask away, man.
All right, good deal. I'm excited as well. The honor's all mine, and I'm glad to finally connect with you. The first time that I became aware of you was from the Branson 2012 DVD set that my wife and I got, and I saw your presentation, which I believe that was on your one of your other books. The Value of Preparedness Lifestyle, and absolutely loved it. I thought that was so cool. And
now that was Branson. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I live in Michigan, so I was raised around a lot of guns and things like that. So I really appreciated that. I thought now unfortunately I don't know as much as I should about them, so we might have to do another show in the future. But I thought that was really cool. But well, anyway, to get things started, for those who might not be familiar with you or your work, can you share with us your testimony, how you came to know Christ, and how that led to what you do today?
Yeah. Wow, long story. I was raised in the church, went to a private Christian school pretty much all my life. I accepted Christ when I was in second grade, and I'm usually like a lot of people accept Christ, and then as soon as they graduate high school and everything, it all goes to pot, and you usually run out in the world. And so I did about a 10-year stint, and in doing my prodigal son time, at least that's what I call it. And so did a lot of that there, joined the Army, and was part of special operations and all that other stuff. And used to jump out of perfectly good airplanes, eat snakes, kill monkeys, things like that, and just did a lot of stuff like that, and it was interesting. We were, not really necessarily raised as preppers, but my mom was a Depression era child. And so we would always do canning and, do all these other things. I remember one time, there was also during the 60s, there was an economic collapse that was going on, and it was affecting a lot of the nation. It was really hard. And I remember, we didn't really have that much money or anything when I was growing up around that time frame. And we'd go in the back of the grocery stores and pick out the veggies and stuff. And I mean, I remember this one butcher would save big old bones for us so that we can make soup and everything. And I remember picking berries on the sides of the road and picking mustard greens and kind of doing the living off the land thing. We would go fishing a lot, and all of us would have fishing poles and stuff so that we can all catch our limit. And then Mom would always can up the fish. So we were doing that a lot, and just so it's not really like I was raised a prepper, but it's just something that we all lived with. And then I lived through the Loma Prieta earthquake that was in San Francisco. That was I think it was the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants were playing that day in the World Series. So learned a lot about that, saw a lot of destruction, and just learned what to do, what not to do. And after that, a lot of my military training had to do and play and everything. But probably the biggest thing that affected us was when Hurricanes Rita and Katrina hit. And we were in Texas, and when those hit, I mean, it was crazy. There you couldn't find anything on the grocery store shelves. I mean, it was absolutely nuts how people were I mean, it's like someone thinking an atomic bomb blew up or something.
Wow.
But it wasn't, it was a trip. But so we learned on that one, always have food. Now it's like, okay, we're never going to have this happen to us again. We're never going to be without food. We're going to always be prepared and everything until the swine flu then hit in the United States back in 2009. And New Braunfels, Texas was ground zero for the swine flu, at least for Texas. I'm hearing that it was kind of like ground zero for the nation. The first cases started being reported in New Braunfels, Texas, and we literally lived through a pandemic. They shut that town down in a heartbeat, and it was interesting. You couldn't find any like face masks or hand sanitizer. I mean, same situation as Rita and Katrina with food. Well, this was now with medicines and medical supplies and everything. And again, once my wife and I said, man, this is never going to happen to us again. And so we've just always been prepared, food-wise, medical-wise. We've just learned to be prepared. But going through that pandemic really helped with a lot of things. And I really learned how to how should I say, basically quarantine ourselves, quarantine my family and everything, so that, because I believe, and don't quote me on this, about 200 people got severely sick, and we had some deaths in New Braunfels due to the swine flu.
Wow.
But the hospital rooms and everything, the hospital was overrun in a matter of 12 hours. I remember that. And they were actually
Wow.
turning people away. Get out of here, go home, treat, do this, do that. And it was really interesting to live through this situation and to see this. And this is something that's one of the main reasons why I wrote my book. And the book being Survive the Coming Storm, the Ebola crisis. And basically in this book, what I do is I teach people how to treat at home, so that, because like in New Braunfels, what happened was, I mean, it just hit like crazy. And again, they instantly closed down schools. They forced businesses to close down. Walmart was only open. I remember Walgreens had a security guard in front. In fact, you couldn't even go in Walgreens. I was trying to find something like called Sambicol and some other, flu preventive, sort of things. I couldn't even go to Walgreens because the security guard says there, he says, dude, we're not letting anybody in unless you have a prescription, period.
Oh, wow.
And the down in Texas, we have what's called HEB, so it's kind of like the equivalent of Safeway or Albertsons or Kroger's or something like that. And they only allowed certain people in. And so as people come in, go out, they would allow other people to come in. And I mean, it was truly a lockdown pandemic sort of situation. And we just learned, it's like, man, we do not want to be part of this ever again. And we don't want to ever be put in the position where we're kind of forced to be part of this situation. And this is something that I teach in my books and I teach in my seminars and everything like that. The key to survival, because I'm one who truly does not believe in all this apocalyptic junk that you see on movies and Last Man on Earth or I Am Legend or Mad Max. I don't believe there's going to be a bunch of mad biker gangs in leather chasing everybody down. We're not going to see Tina Turner singing in the Thunderdome or anything like that. So but what is going to happen is, because again, if my readers know that I'm a history buff, and so I look a lot at history. Ecclesiastes 1, 9, and 10 tells us that there's nothing new under the sun, and that basically man forgets his own history. And because man forgets his own history, he usually repeats all those really bad mistakes. And there's been studies done over the years proving this, and in fact, a lot of, what people don't understand is history is cyclical, not linear. Right. And because it's cyclical, but many people don't understand that, and so they continue to repeat the same bad mistakes and all this other stuff. So you got to excuse me here too. I'm sitting here polishing one of my samurai swords. It has a little bit of rust on it, so I'm multitasking, polishing the samurai sword and
you really are prepared, aren't you?
Yeah. And I know someone out there is going to ask, this is a Case Hanway Raptor Wakizashi. So just in case anybody out there asks, now you know. But anyways.
Good deal.
But we've learned to basically keep ourselves out of the herd. And that's the key for everybody, because history shows that man will adapt to his new normal within about 90 days. And so if you can hang for 90 days and not be part of that crazy herd of rioters and all this other stuff, running to Walmart and running here and running there and everything, you can kind of like just take yourself out of that. Your survivability rate is going to be very good. Now, couple that with like a pandemic sort of situation, and what you're doing is you're kind of quarantining yourself as well, you and your family and other things like that. So you're able to, if you're able to like self-quarantine during a time period like that and not not have that go on and everything, you're going to be doing pretty good. But that's the key. That's what I write about in my book, is how to do that. So
awesome.
But
sorry to cut you off.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, first and foremost, thank you for serving. My wife comes from a military family, and my stepdad was in the Air Force as well. And but yeah, I have nothing but the highest respect for our armed forces. So I want to, I want to.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really do appreciate your service. That's awesome. And I'm glad that you wrote a book like this, because I think a lot of people might. I don't know. I haven't read your reviews or anything, but I think that some people might get the idea that this, like a book like this, or what have you, it's just jumping on the trend of the day, or trying to pander to fear or
Mhm.
something like that. And I just for me, I've read the book, and it is absolutely not that at all.
Well, thanks.
I love that, because it's not it's actually just it's just good information.
Hmm.
There's nothing in
Well,
there that it's
to,
it's honest,
yeah.
but
Well,
there's nothing. Yeah,
to
go
be
ahead.
honest, what I was this is a book that I've been kind of I have a lot of books in my folder that are always writing. I think you've written quite a few books yourself, and so you probably understand this.
Oh
You'll
yeah.
start writing a book and then put it on the side, back burner, and then one day you'll pick it up again. But this is one of those books that I had on the back burner, and I've been writing for a pandemic situation because, again, historically speaking, we have about every, what is it, 25, about 15, about 25 years, we have usually a minor pandemic take place. And then every 100 years, we usually have a global killer pandemic. The last global killer pandemic that took place was the Spanish flu back in 1918. And so we as people are kind of overdue for a global killer pandemic, and that's what I've been just I've been writing about H5N1, which is the bird flu, and expecting that to sooner or later mutate, and then H1N1, of course. H1N1 is the swine flu, is probably the more common flus that out there, but it is the Spanish flu that kills, and so it takes probably about 17 to 25 years for these flu strains to kind of mutate, and then they come back with a vengeance. Sometimes they don't do very well. Sometimes they kill a lot of people. The Spanish flu, H1N1 in 1918, killed a lot of people. It was the same flu that hit in New Braunfels 2009. The swine flu was an H1N1 mutation that hit, and it didn't kill millions of people or anything, but it did do some damage and stuff. But no matter what, there is we're kind of in that odds of having a major global pandemic, and it being a killer. Ebola is not a flu, but has a lot of the flu-like symptoms. The virus is very fragile outside the body, and so if you're able, whatever, basically anything that you do to kill the flu can also kill this. Soap and water, washing your hands will kill the Ebola virus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's because I had, like I said, I had this book already prepared, and when you read the book, and if you know anything about pandemics or anything like that, you'll recognize that I am pulling a lot for the flu, because the Ebola and the flu are a lot alike. They're two different type of bugs or two different types of viruses, but they're not. They are both fragile and very susceptible to the disinfectants and other cleaning and disinfecting and all those other agents that we use to help get rid of bugs like that. So it's if you learn how to be just kind of being a sterile sort of person, and just learn how to live that lifestyle, you'll do pretty good. It's like when the New Braunfels thing. I mean, we weren't touching door handles. We weren't doing anything like that. We were trying to minimize our exposure to people. We weren't allowing anybody to come over or anything like that. And in fact, I remember one time my daughter brought over a friend of hers, and I think she had a little bit of a sniffle. And I was so mad. I was like, "Oh, you just infected us. What are you doing?" But we've So these are things that just based upon our own experience, and then also a lot of my research and everything else too, just knowing that historically we are probably going to most likely see a pandemic, a global killer pandemic, most likely in our lifetime. I mean, again, 1918 was the last global pandemic. That's, 2018 is a couple years off.
Wow.
So um, we're touching upon that 100-year mark, and so it's the odds are getting more and more in the virus's favor versus our favor, and so odds being that the virus most likely will eventually, some virus or something will mutate sooner or later, and it will start infecting people. And so I've been watching closely this Ebola situation, and it's just spreading. I forget which another country. I want to not Uganda, and it wasn't Nigeria. It was, but another African country, the Congo. It now has Ebola in it, and they're now having cases come up sick and everything. It's expected probably by the year closing, by the end of this year, we're probably going to see probably about 100,000 cases. That's what
Wow.
WHO is kind of projecting right now, and if we have that many, that's hard to control. That many people. So sooner or later, it may break out of its confines in a sense. At least right now, Liberia, I think Nigeria, the Ivory Coast, and some of the other countries there, they're not letting planes in or out or anything. They basically self-quarantined the country just to try to prevent the disease from spreading. But no matter what, it has a gestation period of either from 2 to 21 days. So if someone is infected, they may not even know they're infected for up to 21 days before they maybe not show any symptoms or anything like that. So it's even though the person may think he's healthy or she's healthy, and they may jump on a plane, or they may jump on a train or a bus or something like that, and it will, they're now carrying the disease and not really feeling very sick or anything. And that's another thing too, because it kind of mimics the flu and things. People, we're so programmed to just, wow, who cares, suck it up, drive it on, take a few aspirins and keep going to work.
Right.
We're programmed for that, and so if the Ebola, the person who may have contracted Ebola, has got that sort of mentality, then who knows how many people they may spread the disease to, and other things. So it's something that needs to be taken seriously, and my fear is, and this is something I've been watching the newspapers and the RSS feeds like crazy, is that if it ever really breaks out into a truly Western nation like England, France, Germany, America, Canada, Australia, someplace like those, then all bets are off,
Right.
because at least where they are, being in a third world country and everything, it's as sad as it sounds, it's easier to contain because it is third world, and they're not so globally dependent, and they're not so getting on planes and stuff. I mean, if this disease makes it to a major airport and has the chance to spread, it's all bets are off. There was a really, really good movie that came out, I want to say 2006 or something, called Contagion, with
Oh yeah.
I forget what's her name, but man, you want to see a disease that is spread by touch, because that's how that's how Ebola is also spread, and that's how they're basically putting an H5N1 scenario, a bird flu scenario out there on the film, but it's spread by touch. And what they're finding out also is with this Ebola is that in certain quarantined areas, not necessarily quarantined, but close quarter areas or something, it will remain. It can be aerosoled. So if a person sneezes or coughs or vomits or spits or whatever, they can pass the virus on, and the virus will live outside the human body for about 8 hours. And so if
Oh
someone
wow.
sneezes and is in a confined, like a plane or a train or a room or something like that, they can easily spread the disease. And so they've been realizing that, oh, okay, well, it's just a touch, human contact, so it isn't airborne or anything. Well, they're now realizing that this strain of Ebola, because again, it's like the flu, diseases will mutate over years, and that's what's been happening. Is this Ebola strain has mutated, and now this strain does have the ability to live longer outside the human body, as well as being spread via aerosol. So it is, in a sense, for close quarters, it is airborne. And
Wow.
so those are two. You throw airborne into the mix, and it's all of a sudden we're playing a whole different game. And so that's what we're looking at here with this and this is why this has really been concerning me, and I've been keeping an eye like crazy on the Western nations, particularly England. England, France, not necessarily much so Germany, but more England and France. England and France have the potential of because there's a lot of third world travel that goes through England and France versus third world travel going through America. I mean, like it or not, we have it, but we don't have it to the numbers that England and France has it. So they have a lot more international travel or third world travel with their countries versus America. So it's most likely, if something happens, it's probably going to happen within those countries. It'll pop up in their airports, if that happens, then it'll spread globally then, because again
Well,
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, it sounds like that being the case, now would be the time to prepare before it
Yeah.
does get over here, if it does. And you say in
uh
your book, and you mentioned in the show, that the key to surviving this is prevention. So
yeah.
how can we prevent against such a terrible disease? What types of things can we do?
Well, one of the things that I've done, and um, I have a regime of vitamins and supplements that we take whenever anything happens, and this is something that we learned in the 2009 pandemic, is that when something hits, you just start amping up your antibodies and dosing up. And what I recommend is it's just not one thing, but it's a bunch of stuff. For example, one of my biggest fighters, I want to say, is something called Sambucol. And what Sambucol is elderberry, is black elderberry extract or black elderberry syrup. And you can buy it at a lot of the stores and everything. I tell people, folks, get a bunch of Sambucol. And if anything, you can order a bunch of freeze-dried or dehydrated black elderberry off of Amazon, and then make it yourself too. If you buy the store-bought product, the shelf life is pretty decent, but they're using a glycerin, or vegetable glycerin actually, as the carrier, as the main body of the stuff. And I don't know how to explain it, but if you want to make it yourself, what you can do is get a bunch of black elderberries, dehydrated or freeze-dried or something. Again, you can buy them off of Amazon, and then stick them in a mason jar and pour vodka over it. Or if you live in a state that has access to Everclear, the higher the alcohol content, the better. And so just pour Everclear or vodka over it, and then let it sit. And you just keep shaking the jar every other day or something. And basically what you're going to do is be making your own sort of Sambucol stuff. Now, the negative with that is that it is alcohol based, and you give people too much, guess what? They're going to catch a buzz. And it's something and it's something that you really not want to give to young kids. Whereas the product Sambucol, it truly tastes like blackberry syrup. I don't know if you've ever gone to like House of Pancakes or some of these other, Waffle House or something. You eat their berry syrup. That's what it tastes like exactly. I mean,
Oh, wow.
you can pour this stuff on waffles too. But there's something in black elderberry that what it does is it just charges the body and makes the body produce copious amounts of antibodies. And so when you take this, and this is what we do, at the first sign of any illness or anything, take a shot or two of Sambucol. We then take something called Silver Sol. Again, you can buy it off of Amazon, and that's a colloidal silver solution. I like that a lot better because the colloidal silver is a lot finer, and so a lot more of it is digested in the body versus a standard colloidal silver. And then echinacea, and then also something called propolis. Propolis is what keeps a beehive completely sterile. And I don't know if people know this, the beehive is a completely sterile environment. And it's propolis. Propolis is an extract, like something like royal jelly or something that the bees produce, and it keeps their environment completely sterile, safe, and clean. And you're able to harvest it and everything like you do, honey and royal jelly and some of these other things. But propolis, so you can take propolis, and again, that's a antiviral, antifungal, antibiotic natural substance that you can take in pill form, but they also have it in drops that you can take as well. And then on top of that, let's see, so I have echinacea, propolis, silver sol, Sambucol, and then rosehip. Rosehip or vitamin C, but I like rosehip because rosehips have a higher concentration of vitamin C, and it just seems to absorb better in your body versus some of the more synthetic or other vitamin C products out there. But I like rosehip, and then finally, I don't know how this, it's part of my regime, but I take activated charcoal too. And activated charcoal really doesn't help in really fighting off flus or anything like that. Activated charcoal is used more for toxins in the body and other things like that. And so anytime we feel sick, feel like a bug coming on or anything, this is what Tracy and I take. This is what I give to the kids, this regimen. And usually if the kids or us are coming down with something within 24, 48 hours of doing this regime, I mean, it's kicked. And,
oh, wow.
and yeah, it's gone. I mean, you won't get the flu. Sambucol is they do advertise it actually as a cure for the flu.
That's
so
awesome.
The thing is if you can catch your flu, or if you can catch this sickness, or basically any sickness in time, then your survivability rate is a lot better. And so it just means being physically aware of yourself. So if you're feeling sick and you're starting to feel there's very beginning symptoms, and your head feels fuzzy, or you kind of get a little slight headache, and your nose or your throat, or some of these other minor symptoms, if you catch these in time and take this regimen, and again, I'm not a doctor or anything, I'm just saying what works for us. But whenever we've done it, it's kicked whatever in the rear, and we've never gotten sick. I mean, there's very few times that we're truly sick, because as soon as we've just learned over the years, as soon as you start feeling anything, go dose up, and
That's awesome.
And that's what we do.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's that's stuff that Christina, my wife Christina, and I can definitely add, because we always keep a supply of echinacea whenever we start feeling anything come on. even if we we have echinacea and vitamin C, but even if we're not sure, if we just but it never hurts. We always take echinacea and vitamin C like right off the bat, and if it is a cold, it's usually gone in a day or two, or and we haven't had the flu in Oh gosh, years.
Hmm.
It's been yeah, it's probably not since we started doing that. We haven't had the flu once, but that's really good. That's
Yeah.
stuff that we can add as well, and
Hmm.
I'm sure other people out there too.
I'm I'm a big fan of Sambucol. I mean, this stuff it's actually a Jewish it's an Israeli invention.
Oh wow.
Is Sambucol, and they're the ones that did the research on it and everything. And when you take it's almost instantaneous. I mean, it starts amping it starts building the antibodies. The human body starts producing antibodies like crazy, and you can start feeling the effects, not instantaneously, but it's pretty quick. If you start feeling, if you feel kind of down and dopey, and you're not feeling too on your A game, you take some Sambucol, a couple shots of Sambucol, and all of a sudden, about an hour, it's like, man, I'm feeling pretty decent again.
Oh wow.
And I mean, it works pretty fast. So we've just learned, like you, as soon as anything hits, we just take the Sambucol, the echinacea, the vitamin C, the silver solution. I mean, yada yada yada, and we just don't give that virus or bug a chance. And it's it just amps up your antibodies, and that's what will help kill if you've been exposed to Ebola or something. And again, there are no cures for Ebola and everything like that, but if you're going to be a betting person, you want to put as many odds in favor,
Right.
and so that's what I say. Do as much as you can at the get go, and then just keep dosing. Because that's what we do. Whenever we really feel like something's hitting us, we just keep dosing. Every 4 hours, boom, take a dose, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
um,
yeah, definitely. And I'm definitely in favor of trying to increase our odds as much as possible. And
yeah.
something else that you talk about in your book is how to sterilize your home. What types of things can we do to keep our home sterile, and why is that so important?
Well, anytime you go out, and for example, if we ever do have a pandemic situation, you need to have someone who's going to be the dedicated person who goes out. And if you
Hmm.
got kids and everything, they're not going to like it because they want to go out and do this and do that and play with friends and everything. But in a pandemic situation, the house is your sterile environment, and so you minimize contact with everybody. But no matter what, still people are going to have to go out of the house, and so have one person be that individual. And so when they start heading out, again, have them dose up, and um, I'm all in favor of carrying like these little spray bottles of alcohol, or maybe spray bottles of Clorox bleach or something like that. I mean, they're starting to sell them now. In fact, I've got some little bottles of Lysol that are meant to be carrying around with you. And what you need to do is you just need to be very cognizant of touching things, of touching people, touching your face, all these things, so that you're really working hard not to spread a disease or contract a disease or virus or anything like that. And so you just have to learn to be very, when the pandemic hit, I mean, we all carried little napkins with us all the time, so that any door we came up upon, we used the napkin to hold the door open, or open the door with. I mean, we didn't touch any faucets unless we used a paper towel to touch the faucet, or the toilets, or I mean, nothing. I mean, we wouldn't shake hands with people, or anything, because again, the flu, Ebola, both are contact-based illnesses, and so the best way not to get sick is don't come in contact with people, don't touch people, don't touch stuff that you don't know, has been around and everything. But uh, simple ways of sterilizing your home. Again, it's being clean, and you're not gonna kill everything. You're not gonna be able to be 100% perfect, but the more that you do, the better. And uh, getting a bunch of spray bottles, go out and get a bunch of industrial spray bottles, and get some rubbing alcohol. And if you want, you can also add essential oils to the rubbing alcohol, like lavender or thieves. Thieves is a great thing to add to this. Um, Because thieves oil also helps in preventing, the transmission of disease. Thieves oil is a antiviral, antifungal, and antibiotic, and it's amazing. It's amazing stuff, thieves oil. But putting that in alcohol and everything and spraying it, and with, if you use vodka and thieves oil in like a little spray bottle, you can carry this little spray bottle with you and spray things down that you may want to touch or have to come in contact with or something. But also, thieves oil is you can take thieves oil internally, and so you can spray in your mouth too. So if you think that you've breathed something in, or take some shots of thieves oil in your mouth. And it tastes good too. It's a nice breath freshener and everything, but it also helps in preventing gum disease and all this other stuff. But it naturally kills the bacteria and viruses and stuff. So making a concoction of thieves oil and alcohol, or just a water and bleach solution, and carry little bottles around with you or in your wife's purse, or I don't know if you got a backpack or anything, but these are things that you can do that while you're out there just kind of get crazy. And people are going to think you're weird and everything like that. But when the pandemic hits and everything, you've kind of learned how to do this already. And so you're kind of practicing it. And then when you come home, it depends on how sterile do you want to get. Have whoever is the person, go through the back laundry room door and, take off all their clothes and instantly throw it in the laundry and in the washing machine and get them washed, and have a bunch of cleaning supplies right there so that they can wipe down, spray down, whatever they need to do, and, decontaminate right there so that they're not bringing anything into the home, hopefully. And but spraying, with a lot of the spray bottles and things, you can make your own alcohol or solutions, or bleach solutions. Bleach is probably the better of the choices if you're going to do it in the house. But you can spray your bleach solution down on the cabinets and all these things, and you got to get clean. You really got to start keeping things clean and keeping things disinfected and everything. And it's a chore. It's a chore. But if everybody's stuck in the house, then hey, you can constantly kind of keep things clean and going and everything like that, so that you do maintain a sterile environment, but also you're self-quarantining so that you're not coming in contact with people and you're not going to catch or spread or anything like that. So that's what people need. And most of this is all common sense. Is just, we've forgotten over the years to wash our hands. I mean,
Right.
It's amazing how often, when was the last, so it's just getting back into the habit of washing your hands all the time. That will help big time. That in something, and then touching your face. That's another habit that, I don't know if you, in the olden days, at least when I was growing up, my mom was always saying, don't touch your face. Don't touch your nose. Get your fingers out of your mouth. That's bad manners. Well, it's bad manners because back in the olden days when the Spanish flu was going on, you had to teach your kids not to touch their face and all this other stuff. Wash your hands all the time. A lot of manners-based things that we did back then is hygiene, and it's hygiene based on the Spanish flu to prevent the Spanish flu from spreading or you catching the Spanish flu. So it's pretty, again, kind of common sense, but these are things that we need to kind of relearn again. And this is one of the reasons why that if we do have a pandemic, that it will spread so quickly, is because people are not used to washing their hands anymore. People touch their face, I believe, like 15 to 17 times every 3 minutes.
Wow.
On average. Or 5 to 7 times every 3 minutes, or I think the number is in my book somewhere. But you automatically just touch your face. It's your nose itches, your eyes itch. I mean, all of these are transmission spots that the virus. If you have the Ebola virus on your finger, And it only takes 1 to 10 viruses or viroli or whatever they're called, but it only takes one to get inside your body and infect you. And so
Wow.
it's a majorly contagious disease. And so if you rub your eye, any transmission point, if you have an open area to your body, like the eye, the mouth, the nose, any cut, anything what's bleeding, or can this virus get in through get in through a cut or scratch, or an itchy eye or something, it'll transmit to you, and you'll become contaminated with the disease. So it's a very easy disease to catch, but if you're careful and cognizant of a lot of these things, then you're not going to get it. But
Right.
that's the key, is just being very cognizant of touching and coming in contact and everything. And the scary thing about Ebola, like I said earlier on, though, is it takes 21 days on average. They're seeing about 21-day. It takes 2 to 21 days. Some people get it bad really quick. Some people can carry it for 21 days before symptoms show. But if someone has it for 21 days and they fly here to America, how many people can they come in contact with those in that 21 days? Think about that. And then it spreads mathematically, in a sense. So you and I, say I have Ebola, I come up, oh, hey, Josh, how you doing? Shake your hand. Boom. I've now passed the disease to you. Will you contract that disease or not? Who knows? But you have it on your hands or something. If you go off and shake somebody else's hand, then there's a chance that you can pass that on to them. If that person then rubs their eye, touches their nose, whatever, picks their teeth, whatever, eats food, and eat a hamburger, they can ingest the flu virus. I mean, excuse me, the Ebola virus, and so it's very easy to do that. But mathematically speaking, in 21 days, I mean, think of how many people you come in contact, and then the people that you come in contact with come in contact, and so forth and so on, and it just grows geometrically. So,
Wow. Wow.
um,
I think most people probably know at least the basics. And this actually is probably something I should have asked early on. But I think most probably know what the basics of Ebola is. But tell us everything we need to know about the Ebola virus itself. Like what does it actually do to a person when they have it? And once they have it, beyond like the herbal remedies and
mhm.
the preparedness stuff, is there anything that they can do? Because you also mentioned how in the you mentioned in your book how going to the hospital isn't there.
Yeah.
There could be a time that's not really going to be an option. So
Yeah.
yeah, what exactly for those of you, for the listeners who may not be as familiar with it, what exactly is Ebola and what does it do?
Well, Ebola was actually it's a disease that was contracted from monkeys. I believe Zaire is the first strain, and that's where it first popped up, is in Zaire, Africa. But it was transmitted to man through monkeys, and it was passed that way back in the 1976, 19, somewhere around there. Um, but what's happened is, like every other disease, it comes and goes. But every time it comes back, it's mutated. And so it's mutated in one way or another. Sometimes the mutations are bad. Sometimes the mutations aren't that bad. No matter what, the bad thing about Ebola is that there is no cure. And so your body is the one that will fight it off. And so the more that you're able to give your body the tools and ammo that it can use to fight off the virus, then the better it is. And again, living in in Africa and everything, where it is right now, where it's kind of contained, um, you know, they don't have access to Sambucol and echinacea, all this other stuff, and so they, is when the symptoms hit and stuff, they don't have really the means to completely give it a try. And again, I'm not saying that my solution works either. It probably may not. I don't know. But this is just something that I know will kick the flu's butt. And since the Ebola virus and the flu virus are both very fragile, and whatever kills the flu virus will usually kill the Ebola virus. So those are the kind of speculations that I'm making, and everything. Again, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. These are not proven. There is no cure to Ebola or anything. I'm one who believes in putting as many odds in your favor as you can to help if you do catch the disease or something to eradicate it and get well and everything. But what Ebola does is it copies the flu virus. I mean, temperatures, vomiting, diarrhea, the whole schmear, just like you would with the flu. Headaches, fever, loss of appetite, sweats, so forth and so on. And so in the initial stages, it acts a lot like the flu. Now, where it differs is that as it continues to progress, where the flu kind of attacks the brain, how people die of the flu is basically they overheat, and a person can't hang with 105 temperature, 106. These become fatal, and so that's what people usually die of when they die of the flu. Is those sort of, or also, what is it? Lack of water, dehydration, is another thing that flu does to kill you. But it's primarily the fever that kills you with the flu. But Ebola, how it kills is it too works with dehydration. That's one of the that is how you actually die of Ebola. Your intestines no longer have the ability to absorb liquids, and so your body basically dehydrates and dies. But on the trek to that, the virus also basically turns your insides into jelly, and you're, like it or not, as bad as it sounds, when you're to these stages of Ebola, you're dead already, and your insides are just turning to jelly and just liquefying, and so there's nothing, your lower intestines and stuff can't absorb any more water because there are no more lower intestines, or there are no more kidneys, no more liver, or anything like that, because it goes through the body and just eradicates it and just kills it and liquefies your entire insides, and it's a horrible death. You start bleeding. You bleed from every orifice of your body. If you have cuts and scratches and everything like that, you'll bleed from there. Your body doesn't have the ability to coagulate anymore. The blood doesn't have the ability to coagulate, excuse me. And so you turn into a lump of kind of goo, and it's a horrible way to go. All the while too is you are suffering from the fever, because it has a very horrible fever, high temps. Same thing, vomiting, diarrhea. Again, a lot of the flu-like symptoms with the added benefits, quote, or features of basically rotting your insides and liquefying your insides.
Wow. What is what's the survival rate for something like that?
The current survival rate right now of this strain, I hate to say it, but this strain, now again, this is happening in Africa and everything, so the survivability rate normally is about 40% survivability rate, but this strain has been pretty drastic, and they don't really have the numbers out there yet, but rough estimates right now are showing only 10% survive.
Wow.
So this is a mutated, every time Ebola pops up, it's been mutated. Every time. That's the same thing with like H1N1. The swine flu that came through in 2009 was a mutated form of the Spanish flu. It wasn't as deadly, but some people did die of the Spanish flu, or of the swine flu that hit in 2009. Back in the late 60s, there was something called Hong Kong flu. Again, the same thing, H1N1. It was just another mutated form of H1N1, and people died of that. My dad caught Hong Kong flu, And I remember that my mom basically quarantined the house off. We couldn't go in certain areas, and we were not allowed in certain areas. We weren't allowed to come near my dad or anything like that because he had Hong Kong flu. Um, Again, just a mutated form of H1N1, and so it's just, again, learning these symptoms, learning to be proactive, and the more stuff that you have on hand, so that if someone does feel sick or anything, you're able to instantly treat. And again, Ebola is not curable, or they don't have a cure for it or anything like that. But me being a betting, if I'm a betting man and everything, I want to put as many odds in my favor. So as soon as if I know that Ebola is out there and is making its way across America or something, at the slightest hint of anything, I'm gonna dose up. Just to and again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that my dosing is the cure all, or because again, there is no cure. But I just know that it's helped us with the flu and everything in the past. So these are just things that I've done with the flu, and we've never gotten the flu because of it, because we've just learned to instantly dose up whenever we're feeling bad, and
Awesome.
and stuff. So
Yeah, it's definitely important, and we've talked we talked about a lot of different things that we can get and that we can do, and there might be some people thinking that all these things can get pretty expensive, and they might not feel like they can fit that into their budget, or maybe even use that as an excuse to not be as prepared as maybe they should be. How would you respond to someone who might be thinking that?
I mean, how much is your life worth?
Yeah.
And this has got not. I am someone. Trace and I, we've lived cash free. I mean, we're cash only, and we've been cash only since 2001. We don't have credit cards or anything like that. If we don't have it in the bank, we don't spend it. So we've learned to live like that. But as much as I hate credit cards and everything, I've been telling people this is something that if you need to go out and run up your credit card, then this is something that I would do.
Right.
And I don't say that very often on very many things, but the thing is that as soon as if Ebola comes to the shore and comes to the U.S. or any of these Western nations or anything, it's going to spread like crazy, and it's going to spread fast. And what's going to happen then is all of a sudden you're going to be dealing with herd mentality. And the moment that you start dealing with herd mentality, you're going to be making poor decisions. You're going to be making unwise decisions. You're going to be basing your decisions on fear, instinct, panic, and so you'll be seeing everybody buy boxes of Gatorade, and it's like, oh my, I need to buy boxes of Gatorade, where maybe you should actually be buying aspirin or Tylenol.
Right.
But because the herd is buying Gatorade. And we saw this firsthand. People buying stupid stuff, and because 5 other people bought it, all of a sudden the whole store is going to buy it.
Right.
And so that's herd mentality, and panic mentality like that is you can get sucked into that very quickly, very easily. And so if you have all this stuff on hand, then you're not going to have to deal with the herd. And you're going to be able to treat at home, and you're going to be able to self-quarantine and all this other stuff. And so I tell people, it's like, folks, listen, you need to have at least 90 days of food, water, medicine, whatever else that you want to have on hand. And then on top of that, your pandemic supplies. And I've got a bucket. I've got one of these storage bins, but that's my pandemic bin.
Mm-hmm.
And in it I have my rubber gloves, my goggles, my Clorox treatment stuff, my alcohol, my anything and everything that I'm always buying stuff, and I'm always throwing it into that bin. That's my pandemic bin. And so if you just do it over time and just start doing it, every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to Walgreens or anything, buy something. And even though you may not have enough money or anything, Tracy and we're not rich at all. But what we've learned to do and this is what I tell everybody. I've told them in my seminars and everything. You take baby steps. What you and your wife need to do is sit down and have a very hard discussion. Okay, we are going to start preparing. What is going to be our budget? And what you need to do is you need to budget realistically, because it's very easy to get very overwhelmed very fast. And so what Tracy and I did is we allocated $7 as our magic number. Every time I went to the grocery store, no matter what, if it was just for a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk, I bought $7 worth of food. If big shopping, little shopping, and my foot stepped into that grocery store, I was spending $7 on survival food. So you buy a couple cans of Spam, some bags of beans, some this, some that, whatever. And you'll be amazed that if you adopt that idea, how fast you can get food and everything going. Same thing with meds. So every time you step into Walgreens or you purpose in your life at that time, okay, our food preps are good. We are now focusing on meds. So what we're going to do is every time we step into a store that has medicines of some sort, like a Walmart or something, we're going to go over and buy $7 worth of meds. So $7 worth of vitamin C, or $7 worth of Band-Aids, or $7 worth of rubbing alcohol, or hydrogen peroxide, or whatever. But every time you step in the store, you're going to spend $7. And that was our magic number. Your magic number might be 4. Someone else's magic number might be 5. Someone else's magic number might be 10. You know what your budget can handle, and so that's what you do. And the thing is just getting in the habit and then sticking to it no matter what. And there were times too when I didn't bring home stuff. Tracy goes, "Well, where's our survival food? What'd you spend on survival food this time?" I was like, "Oh man," and I would forget. And she would send me out, and I'd run down and go grab $7 worth of something. So, but that's how it's amazing how much you can buy, how fast you can acquire by just doing that. Determining that every time you and your wife, or you or your wife, go into a grocery store, hardware store, pharmacy, whatever, you're going to spend X amount on every single time, and you'll be able to prep up pretty quickly. In a month's time, it was amazing how much food and stuff. I cleaned out a closet to be our prep closet when we first started. I had that overflowing in a month.
Wow.
And I mean, just all kinds of stuff and things. But yeah, and for the longest time too, we maintained that mode easily for a year. And anytime we recognize, this is how we were able to get a good amount of food going after Rita and Katrina, is what we did. Well, we didn't think about meds. And then the pandemic hit and New Braunfels, and well, now we started thinking about meds. So again, since we were already in the habit, all we did was we just switched over from food to meds, and just started every time we go in the store, buy something medical. And
wow. So what are some of the best like types of food that we can get that'll last the longest and be still be I'm sure.
Well,
I mean, worry about nutrition and stuff. So what's like the best way that we could go about that with in terms of food?
What I recommend people do is, first of all, eat what you buy. I mean, buy what you eat. And so you may go onto some of these prepper boards or something like that and say, oh, you need 500 pounds of wheat and 500 pounds of lentils. And well, if you don't eat lentils and wheat, then why are you buying it for?
Right.
You're not going to eat it. So don't waste your money. Just because it says it on a prepper board doesn't mean it's right for you. So buy what you eat. And so if you guys like Spam, then buy a bunch of Spam. If you guys like Denny Moore beef stew, then buy Denny Moore beef stew. If you guys like beef jerky, buy beef jerky. I mean, all these things, buy what you eat. And then that will get you going. And then most canned foods, like it or not, a lot of people pay attention to the expiration dates. The expiration dates are a bunch of horse hockey. And basically, as long as the can is good, the label is nice, not dented, not rusted, all this other stuff, odds are the food is edible. And if it looks good, feels good, there's still pressure in the can and everything like that, it's good, it's edible. Don't, you're not going to die because it's a year after expiration. I mean, I've eaten so many over-expired food. And the thing is, and especially in the medical arena, this is something that, this is FDA law, is that the expiration date on medical supplies, that, for example, aspirin or Tylenol or whatever you're going to buy over the counter, even though it has an expiration date, that medicine must be good 2 years after the expiration dates. It must maintain full potency 2 years after the expiration date.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you can buy this stuff and you're, oh man, this is that. Well, you know what? Aspirin doesn't go bad. So instead of taking 2, you take 4. So it's just running the expiration dates and stuff. There's now prescription drugs, that's a different thing. But most over-the-counter stuff, just because it's expired, all it does is it loses its potency. And that's the way it is in 9 times out of 10 stuff. A very good book that you can get is by Doc Bones and Nurse Amy. It's called The Doom and Bloom Medical Handbook, Preparedness Medical Handbook. And I've learned a lot of stuff from them. They're friends of mine and everything, but very, very good book. By Doc Bones, Nurse Amy. It's the Doom and Bloom Medical Prepper Guidebook or something. But they will tell you, they will actually build you up into a almost a mini ER. And I mean, if you read that book and you do everything you'll be doing triage and all this other stuff, because the way they're teaching you is that someone needs to be the doctor,
right?
Because you're not going to be able to go to the hospital. And you're not going to want to go to the hospital. The hospital will turn into the morgue. And if you take anybody to the hospital during a pandemic, you're basically signing their death warrant, because they're not going to, once that person enters those doors, the hospital by law won't let them go. And so they're there to die. And because treatment, they're not going to be ever treating anymore. What they're going to be doing is making people comfortable so that they can die. And that's it. So, don't ever take anybody to a hospital or a doctor during a pandemic, because you're signing their death warrant. And then, even with that, the survivability rate and everything is horrible. The germs and disease and everything, hospitals are horrible. They're just disease ridden. And
the interesting thing that I discovered recently, I just had a total hip replacement surgery, and when I was in the hospital, and they were honest about it too. They said, we're gonna try to get you out of here. If you're doing well, we're gonna get you out of here on day 2 or day 3 after your surgery. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, wow, that seems really, really fast. But they're honest about it. They even said, well, the hospital really is the worst place for you, because you're at so much higher risk of infection and things like that. And I thought that was really interesting. So if it's like, if the hospital is like that now, when we're not dealing with this horrible pandemic, imagine how bad it's going to be.
Exactly.
When we are.
Exactly. And so they're going to be, basically, hospitals and everything are just going to be turning into morgues. That's all they're doing. So if you care about your family and everything, you need to learn to treat at home. And you need, and to treat at home, you need to have the supplies at home. And it's funny. I mean, you can go into my bathroom and I got 2 shelves, 5-foot tall bookshelves, with I think each shelf unit has like 5 shelves or something like that, crammed full of every single medical thing there. I mean, I've got my shelves broken down into categories. This is eye, ear, nose, and throat. This is allergy. This is flu. This is burns. This is cuts. I mean, you name it. But my shelves are. I've got all my meds, and then I have on my lower shelves are all my backup meds. So when I run out of that, I at least have a backup then. Again, just in case, because you never know. When you buy stuff, you don't want to buy just enough. You want to buy over, because when you're just enough, then you're going to run out pretty quickly, and then in the middle of treating somebody, you're going to need more. Well, by that time, if a pandemic is going or something like that, forget it. So it's smart that whenever you're buying stuff, buy 3 or 4 of them. And like whenever I buy Sambucol, I always buy 2 or 3 bottles every time. And people are like, wow, man, that's $10 a bottle. Well, how much is your life worth?
Yeah,
And so, stop looking at the dollar value and start looking at how much your life is worth. And
absolutely. And also that of your family.
exactly. I mean, we're all parents and everything. We feel horrible whenever our kids are sick, and it's horrible to be in a situation where you're helpless. And in a pandemic environment, if you have not prepped, you're going to be helpless. And to sit there and watch your child possibly die because you didn't have the wherewithal to prep and buy all this stuff ahead of time, especially now that if you're listening to this show, um, that's horrible to sit
Yeah,
and watch that happen. So you want to the more that you can prep now, the better you're going to be off. And that's just look at it as an investment. And the thing is no matter what, you're going to use these meds anyways. I use Sambucol for everything.
right.
Cold, flu, sore throat, you name it, allergies. There's been times, if you're feeling dumpy, go take a shot of Sambucol, and it helps. So and these are all vitamin C. Yeah, you're going to be taking vitamin C every day anyway. So echinacea, maybe not every day, but you're going to be taking it and stuff. So don't look at it as you're spending money and everything. Look at these things as investments, because I guarantee this time next year or even 3 months from now, you're going to start seeing prices jump up for stuff.
Yeah.
It's happening already. We're seeing inflation take place. Inflation is right now. Inflation is moving, at least in food, is easily going 50%. Let me remember here. From January to March of this year, food prices in general went up 25%. From March to June, food prices did another jump to 25%. So within this year alone, so probably by now, say June, July, August, September, so probably by the beginning of February, beginning of October, end of September, we're probably going to see another jump. If you just take this over time, food from June to October has inflated another 25%.
So
And
now would be the time to.
yeah, so basically
Yeah.
what I'm saying is you need to buy stuff now while they're, because no matter what, this stuff is going to go up in price. So what you
Yep.
buy today may go up in price in 2 years. And then God help us when flu and cold season really hits, um, that's when stuff goes up too. So you're just coming in, we're starting to come into the flu and cold season. Start looking for sales on this stuff, and you'll start seeing them as flu and cold season takes place and starts coming into fruition. They always have sales, and so that's a good time to buy. But you always buy it before the flu and cold season or at the beginning of the flu and cold season. So start keeping an eye on your newspapers and your Sunday, whatever, coupons and everything like that. And you'll start seeing Sambucol and Tylenol and, cough medicine and all these other things, hand sanitizer and everything. Especially here in September, too. You're going to start seeing some of that stuff also go on sale just because it's National Preparedness Month. But
Wow.
these are things that you can do right now.
That's awesome. This isn't a question that I had on my list, but it just kind of came to me
Mm-hmm.
because I know some of my listeners deal with this too. Well, not in the exact same way that I do, but just I have this rare bone disease, and so chronic pain is something that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say now I've been the past few months I've been trying to look into more natural remedies because for the past years I'm done with narcotics.
Mm-hmm.
That about destroyed my life. But so I've been looking into more natural things, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to find one that seems to work. But I'm curious if you, for people dealing with chronic pain, if you had any suggestions for natural things that people could get into for that.
Um, Alternative medicines, alternative treatments, and everything like that. I've I've heard a lot of positive things with acupuncture.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, I knew someone who had a very bad sciatic nerve, went and did acupuncture, and they were basically cured. So
Wow.
that's something to look into. Some of these other Chinese medicines and everything. I'm not into, and you need to be careful when you go to some of these practitioners too, because they may be practicing what's called Reiki.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Reiki is basically they're using the force to heal you. And
Yeah.
um, so if they're a Reiki practitioner, I wouldn't deal with them. But you can go to a solid Chinese medical person that will use Chinese herbs and everything. But acupuncture, I've heard, I've never had it done on myself, but it has helped people that I know, and so
Oh,
that's
great.
something. Um, I'm a big essential oil person. I like essential oils. I've been really I study a lot about those and everything. My wife right now has her hands have been bothering because she's spending too much time on the computer and things. So I've been massaging her hands. One of the products that we use for that is called Tiger Balm, and they come in these little itty bitty jars. But Tiger Balm is insane. I love it, and it's cheap. A little jar, and a little jar goes a long way. But they're like $4 at a little jar, and it's like a little 1 ounce jar of Tiger Balm. And another thing too is like Absorbing Junior. That's another inexpensive, product that you usually find on the bottom shelf at Walmart or something. It's an old um, mentholated alcohol-based treatment, and I do Tiger Balm and that with my wife's hands and stuff like that, and it helps the pain go away.
Oh,
Um,
great.
essential oils, again, I'm like, what is the name? Well, Thieves, but Thieves really doesn't help for pain. But I forget the name of the company. They're the big essential oil company, but it's called Panaway, and Pan away, and it's a wintergreen mix of essential oils that will help pain as well. And again, these are like more muscle and bone pain and stuff like that. But I don't know if you've ever tried any of these things. But um, I've,
No,
I've
I
had
haven't,
a
but
try the Tiger Balm and Absorbing Junior. Um,
awesome.
I mean, you're going to kind of maybe smell like a pharmacy a little bit, but at least it's not as bad as like Ben Gay and some of these other things. But
Right.
what I do with the Tiger Balm will absorb in, and then I use the Absorbing Junior, which then helps make this absorb even deeper. And so I put Tiger Balm on first, and then Absorbing Junior on second. Um, and then also in some cases, like for my wife or something, I've been putting some drops of Panaway oil on first. Then I'll do the Tiger Balm, and then I'll do the Absorbing Junior. So, but
Are you familiar with kratom leaf at all?
no, I'm not. I don't know that.
That's something that I've been using recently, and it seems to work pretty well. It's you basically make tea out of it. It's a leaf that originates in different parts of Taiwan and
Hmm.
Philippines, like that, areas like that. But they have farms here in America where they grow it, and I think there are a couple of states that has made it illegal. It's legal in my state, in Michigan.
Hmm.
So those listening, and then the reason is because there is a little bit of controversy around it because you get a little buzz off of it.
Hmm.
Actually, sometimes kratom leaf is used for to help people get off of narcotics because it's
Hmm.
similar. It's
Hmm.
not it's not anywhere near what narcotics will do, but it's there's a little bit of similarity there, but so it's not anything for kids.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and I've been using that, but what I like about it is um Well, it's one of those things you can't, if you have chronic pain like I do, this isn't something that you can take every day.
Yeah.
Because if you take it, one day, I usually, it's like a teaspoon. You take a teaspoon of it, mix it in some water or something, and drink it. If you take it that day, if you try to take it the next day, 1 teaspoon won't do it. You'll need to take
Hmm.
two, if you
Yeah.
if you want it to work. But actually, it's kind of nice because it prevents people from becoming addicted to the buzz that you get off of it. And
Hmm.
again, it's not anything that's so extreme like what Vicodin or morphine or something will do. It's not,
Hmm.
like that. But there is a little bit of fuzziness that comes along with it. But
Yeah.
I know for me, I keep some of that, and that's pretty inexpensive too. But there's places you can get it online, and I keep some of that handy for days where it's just really bad.
Yeah.
Again, it's not an everyday thing, but uh, so that's one thing that I was able to find that
Something
actually.
Well,
Yeah.
something else that you may want to look into, do some research on it. But we drink kombucha,
Okay.
and start doing your research on kombucha. Kombucha is fermented tea, comes out of China and everything, and the byproduct of it is gluconic acid. Yeah, is gluconic acid, and there's study after study after study after study that uh, people, they, oh no, this can't be a wonder drug, or this can't do this or that, but it does. I mean, it helps with athlete's foot. It helps with growing hair. It helps with primarily the big benefits is GI tract, and then also with cholesterol, reducing your cholesterol and the hardening of the arteries and the elasticity of your skin and everything. But it helps rebuild cartilage. It helps it helps like again hair, fingernails grow better and everything. But it's something we make it ourselves. And I mean, you want to lose weight, drink kombucha. It's one of these all around very good for you, kind of a miracle drink. And it's something that's an acquired taste. But what's good is like here, when I make it, I'll add ginger to it
Hmm.
and make a ginger kombucha. I mean, you can add fruit to it and make a whatever fruit you want, peaches or pears, or you just take an emulsion of fruit and put it in the bottle with it, and you'll have a kombucha, ginger kombucha. I like ginger kombucha. Um, I've wanted to add mint to it too, do a mint ginger kombucha, and but that's something else that you can look into. Not that, and that would be more of a long term, over time sort of thing that you can do. Now, would that prevent pain or anything? But it may not. But it may actually help with the other underlying symptoms and everything like that as well. So it's something to look into, and it just has a lot of positive benefits, and it's healthy. People, it's been shown to cure or get rid of ulcers. It does all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
But
wow.
do research on kombucha, and it's pretty amazing stuff, and it's easy to make. I've got a 5-gallon bucket of it brewing right now, and so it's super simple
Awesome.
and very very easy to do and very healthy for you, and it just helps in so many different ways. There's several books out there that you can get for it and everything, but there's just tons of research on the internet that you can do, and it's amazing what they say kombucha will help cure. Because it is like one of these wonder drugs. Like, no, it can't do that. What, athlete's foot and cholesterol? How does it do that? So a lot of people think it's snake oil, but the research shows that it's working. So
Wow.
the doctors and everything, they don't want to look at it and everything because it's fermented tea.
Yeah, yeah.
How can fermented tea be helping you? So, but it does. So it's
That's
something.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that because there's a whole bunch of stuff that could help me with, and my wife
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
Um, so Looking at this from this whole preparedness thing, especially with Ebola, and looking at it from a Christian perspective, does being a Christian affect how we should prepare and how we should act after a cataclysm hits? Like for example, during the cataclysm or in the aftermath, if somebody asks us for help, should we take the stance of, well, you should have been prepared, or or should we offer help even if it's at the expense of our own supplies? As a Christian, what should we
Yeah,
do?
and that's actually an excellent question. And how I've always answered that is that God is going to, and see, the thing is, first and foremost, you need to prepare.
Right.
And a lot of people have got this grandiose idea that God's going to rain manna from heaven, or He's going to do this, or He's going to do that. No, God has given you the talents and tools already. You've got
The manna's already here.
brain to think with and hands to work with.
Right.
And so, to do anything else is what I call tempting God. So if you're doing nothing, especially if you know something is coming and you're going to do nothing about it, you've now walked into the tempting God arena. Oh, God's going to look out for me. Well, no, you're supposed to look out for yourself and do stuff yourself. Otherwise, it falls into tempting God. So, but scripture is scripture after scripture after scripture in the Bible promoting preparedness. I mean, God always forewarns His people, always. And those who listened live, those who don't die. Very simple. And so either you can listen and live and prepare, or you can die. And the thing is that if you see a storm coming, do like Noah did, build the ark. And so it's just and here's a let me read a verse here. This is one of my favorite verses. And I need to commit this one to memory. I always let me look it up here. It's Timothy, 1 Timothy 5:8, real good one. And this one I actually present to a lot of men whenever I'm talking or anything like that. I said, but 1 Timothy 5:8 says, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those in his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than the infidel.
Yep.
And so if we as leaders and husbands and everything, if we have not provided, food, health, welfare, and security and everything, then we've dropped the ball.
That's right.
We are responsible for our family in all aspects. And if we're not doing anything, then you're a sluggard. And your family is going to suffer from it. I mean, I've had men come up and tell me, and my first words, I get in people's face, and people don't like it, but I says, I really feel sorry for your wife because you're a sluggard, and so whenever this happens, it's going to happen, and then your wife and your kids are going to have to suffer through it because you're just too stinking lazy, and you're worse than the infidel. So and by that time, I says, listen, just get out of my face. Don't waste my time anymore. And if I would, I would go off and start learning how to start being a good husband, because you're basically a dirtbag in my eyes. And I've called husbands like that before at conferences, and they get all pissed off, and pardon my French, but this is a hot button for me, and because you probably hear my emotion get. But this is a hot button for me. We as men are called to serve our families. We're called to lay our lives down for our families and everything. And I see so many men out there who are dropping the ball on this. And it's like, dude, how dare you call yourself a Christian when you haven't even taken care of your family?
Yeah.
You're low life. I mean, you're a sluggard. The Proverbs 6:6 says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Another prepping one, Proverbs 30:25. The ant are people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. I mean, there's verse after verse after verse talking about preparedness, and yet I get people that come up to me all the time and say, well, God hasn't told me to prepare. I said, well, gee, how much time do you spend in His Word?
Yeah, no kidding.
The Bible. And because if you're reading the Bible, then you'll see it really clearly. And what I'll do, I usually have my Bible with me too, and I'll whip out the Proverbs 6:6 verse. And I says, what does this say? Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. And And I said, well, then what about Noah? And I'll flip over to Genesis, and this is a good one. The last couple verses in Genesis 6, it says, "And take thou unto all the food that is eaten, thou shalt gather it unto thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them," meaning him and his family. "And thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he." Mm-hmm. So God himself told Noah, dude, get up all this food and everything so you can feed your family during these, 40 days and 40 nights or however long you're going to be in the ark, because you're going to be in there for a while. So start storing it up.
Yep.
I mean, Joseph, did God come along with like a little magic fairy wand and magically fill the silos full of wheat and everything? I mean, if Joseph would have just ignored it and everything, like what a lot of people are doing today, I mean, not only did Joseph save Egypt, Joseph saved Israel and other nations too, because he had the foresight. He paid attention. And again, God, if you're paying attention, God's warning people right now. And to say that, oh, God hasn't told me to do this, or I don't do it, dude, you are now tempting God. And, we are not called to tempt God. And so you need to be doing something. And if you're not, especially if you're a husband, then you fall into the 1 Timothy 5:8 realm, and you're an infidel. And so, that tells me your character, and oh, how dare you judge me? I said, I'm not judging you. I'm just looking at the facts.
That's
and
right.
So Bible calls you an infidel, and because you refuse to actually do what's right by your family and everything. So get out of my face. And again, I'm bad at some of these conferences when I have people like that walk up to me. I get it's a hot button with me, because we as men, so many men today have become feminized, and they don't have a spine or anything like that. They're just, they don't care about their families, and they're not willing to stand for their families and stuff. So, yeah, it's a hot button with me. We need to be preparing. We need to be getting ready. We need to be doing all that we can so that our families can live and survive, and not out of fear either. We're not doing this out of fear. I mean, 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be ready to share the hope that's within us in meekness and fear. Well, that word always, that's the key word in that verse. Always means always, in good times and in bad. And, do you think that you're going to be effective in sharing the gospel if you're standing in some soup kitchen line? No. Right. I mean, who's going to listen to you? You're going to have the weight of the world on your shoulders just as much as the other person. Whereas if you had the wherewithal and the brains and the smarts to prepare and paid attention to God warning you and doing it, then you're going to be able to prepare, and you're going to be able to offer hope. Because when hard times hit, people hurt. When people hurt, they're open to the Word of God. They're open to hearing the gospel and everything. So we prepare not out of fear. We prepare for the sake of the gospel. And what I tell people is just don't just prepare for you. Prepare for many. Because, one, you don't know how long you're going to be down. Two, there's going to be people that God's going to bring to you that you may need to help. And just because someone knocks on your door and says, hey, man, got a dozen eggs, you're not going to give food to every stinking person that walks up to them. Some you're going to give food to because God is going to put it on your heart to help them. Other people, you're going to show them your Glock 19 and say, get the heck off my property.
Right.
For a fill with some holes. So, but God is going to give you that insight every time someone walks up. Do I feed them or do I not? He's gonna tell you who to help and who not to. So, and that's what we're doing this for, is not because we're scared or we're fearful or anything. The big game plan is Matthew 28:19. Go ye therefore to all world and share the gospel. That's what we're called to do. And so that's why we prep. That's why we do all this. That's why we do it, because right now, a lot of the pastors are just dropping the ball. Churches today just aren't very, they're more worried about being relevant to the world than being relevant to God.
Right, they're more entertainers.
Exactly. Psychobabble like stinking Joel Osteen and his stupid wife.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
But that job is going to fall upon people like us. To step up. I mean, look at who Christ picked. He didn't pick the Pharisees and the religious people and with all the people with the letters behind their name. He used fishermen and tax collectors and people like you and me.
Yeah.
I don't have any college degree or anything like that, so I'm just one of the lay people. Well,
Yep.
God used. I mean, look at Peter. But he that's who he likes to use, is people like us. So we need to be ready, so that when the time does come, we are ready to share the hope and make a difference. And that's what this I believe is coming, is that we have a chance to share this hope. We have a chance to make a difference for the Lord, help build the kingdom. Truly be the salt and the light the world needs again and stuff. So that's my why.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny how you mentioned that some of the people that you've come across in your conferences and things, because most of those people, I bet, would say, if you were to ask them, well, are we living in the end times or the last days, they'll say yes. And uh, well, what did Jesus say about the last days? There's going to be wars and pestilence and all these horrible things. And then they might say, well, we've always had that. Well, that's even more reason to prepare for it then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I get people too that touch on the rapture. Well, I'm not doing anything because the rapture's right around the corner.
Right.
I go, oh, really? Can you share with me that magic crystal ball that you've got that's going to tell you when?
Yep.
When is it going to be, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so? Please share, because obviously you know something that I don't. And the last time I read the Bible, it says only the Father in heaven knows. Yep. And so not even the angels or the Son. So please tell me how God has gifted you with this special information. And you can't bank on it. Paul was talking about the rapture. I mean, that was 2,000 years ago almost. Come on. So, that's a cop-out excuse because you're lazy. And so we need to be ready no matter what, and not use these excuses to not do something.
That's right, and I'm glad that you brought up the rapture angle, because a lot of people will use that, and and me, myself, I've sat on this show, and we've done a couple shows about, I'm a pre-tribulation rapture believer. I don't have any problem with that, but that is, and I've said this in so many episodes, I've lost count, but that is no excuse to not be prepared for trouble, because you made a perfect point. Paul talked about the rapture 2,000 years ago, and we've had 2,000 years of wars and pestilence and famines and all these horrible things. So we can't just say, well, the rapture is going to come before anything really bad. No, that's if I were a betting man, I would never take that bet.
No, yeah, exactly.
I do believe that it's going to be a pre-trib kind of thing, but even with that, though, I always say, even with that, even though I do believe in a pre-trib, even with that, I still could be wrong. I say, pray for pre, but prepare for post. That's
exactly, that's basically how I've kind of, because I'm pre-trib too.
Yeah.
And I've basically come upon that. That's the same thing that I believe. Pray for a pre, prepare for a post. Then that way, again, I've gotten to the point where I don't even really talk or deal with the rapture anymore, because so many people use it as a cop-out. And that's what it's become over the years. It's just become a cop-out for people not to do the work. Go ye therefore. People have been majoring on the minors, and they need to major on the majors again.
That's right.
We need to be sending out missionaries. We need to be doing our own work also. And again, but if we start majoring on the minors, then we lose sight of the major stuff. The primary reason we're here is to share the gospel, period. Not do this and not do that and all these other little minor things that we like to play with and delve into and everything. These are all fun and these are exciting and they tickle the ears and everything, but our true job, and this is what we need to keep our sights on, is that we're losing the game here because we're just not sharing the gospel enough. Look at this world. I mean, if people were truly busy sharing the gospel, what kind of place would this world be today?
That's right.
I look at where the world is today, and it's horrible. So how can we? We're dropping the ball big time, and the enemy has taken the high ground, and so things are bad, and he's just laughing all the way to the bank. And it's just, if we would get back just to the simple stuff of sharing the gospel again and loving our fellow man and our brother and everything, life would probably get pretty cool again. But, it's not. And it's all because we're not sharing the gospel anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, and it's something I try to stress on this show too, how important all that stuff is, because on this show we tend to touch on some controversial things, and it happens. There's lots of it, but I try to make sure everything's can be backed up with scripture, of course. But and all that stuff, it's fine and it's fun. But what I always try to do is bring it back to God, and because that is what is most important. And I think as well as being prepared physically, we should be prepared spiritually, and that that's what I like about talking with somebody such as yourself, because you put importance on being prepared spiritually as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're prepared spiritually, the physical preparedness stuff will follow, because it's the fruits of the spirit and things. And to a lot of people that don't bother with preparedness, and they think that God's just going to wave a magic wand or something and make everything okay. Again, where is that in the Bible? Because when I read the Bible, I read things all throughout Scripture. Be prepared, be prepared, be prepared, because this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. And I don't know of any time when, like what you brought up with Noah, God didn't build the ark for Noah. Noah had to do it. And so we had God warned Noah, but we have those warnings now.
Yeah. Well, another way to get people to think too, and I've thrown this out there. Because when I'm talking and everything, especially when doing my food presentation, I'll say, okay, folks, give me a raise of hands here. How many here have homeowners insurance or renters insurance? Raise your hand. Almost everybody does. How many here have car insurance? Raise your hands. Almost everybody does. How many here has like some form of medical insurance? Okay, fine. So I said, okay, sir, how come you have home insurance? Well, it's there because just in case someone does this or that happens or our house burns down or whatever. Okay, so you're doing it for just in case, right? Yeah. Okay, so, you over there, how come you have car insurance? Well, it's just in case I get in an accident. Okay, we're back at that just in case thing again. You had health insurance. Why do you have health insurance? Well, just in case. Well, again, just in case. So you're doing all these things just in case, and yet you're, why aren't you getting food insurance? Why aren't you getting pandemic insurance? Okay, you can't go out. I mean, well, you can in a sense, but food insurance is you going out and storing up food.
Yep.
And pandemic insurance, going out and buying medical supplies and stuff like that, or however you want to call it. But these are ways to kind of self-insure, so that you're, and then one of the things that I always hit people up with too is that you know how many times people's food stores have helped them in a time of crisis? And I says, how many here, how many here are employed? And I'll have people raise their hands and everything. And I says, do you know on average, in an average of 5 years, you're probably going to become employed in some time or something. How long can you and your family hang without food?
Right.
So, why not at least have food, so that, because you know that you're gonna get fired sooner or later. It's just, that's the way the world is. Every 5 to 7 years, people will probably lose their jobs unless they're really doing the corporate ladder climbing and everything like that. But on average, a job now lasts about 5 to 7 years. And so you will be given a pink slip, and then the replacing of that job is usually about 14 months. And so if you had the wherewithal to think ahead and plan ahead and buy all this extra food and everything, so even if you were able to get on unemployment and everything like that, you now don't have to buy food. So how much further can that unemployment check now take you, because you're not having to buy food? Why? Because you thought ahead and you put your own food insurance in plan. And it's like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't think of that. So it's a lot of people tend to think of end of the world and disasters and terror events and all this other junk. I mean, one of the most common crises and emergencies that are happening to the American family today is the pink slip.
Right.
And it's horrible. So, if people had food, if they had their medical supplies, if they had these things on hand, these are things, because they've made these investments early on, they don't have to buy them when they're in this crisis mode anymore. They have food on the table. They have medical supplies. They have these things now. Whereas if they had to collect some unemployment check, or if they didn't have an unemployment check, and whatever, at least they have food, and they're not spending money on the food. They thought ahead. So that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and that's a really, really good way of looking at it, and I'm glad that you brought that up. It's something that when my bone disease got so bad that I couldn't work anymore, and it was pretty sudden. I mean, I knew that I knew it would happen eventually, but I was still pretty young at the time. I didn't think it would happen as fast as it did, and I really wasn't at all prepared. But looking back on that now. Well, I should say when I first realized that there was going to come a time that I would be unable to work and I'd have to, on disability and everything, I really wasn't prepared. But when it was really getting up to that time where it's like, okay, because with the bone disease that I have, the more strain I put on it, the further the disease will progress. So I just worked at McDonald's. I was a manager at McDonald's for a while, but even that. That put so much strain on my because it's in my right leg. That put so much strain on my right leg because I was on my feet for 10 hours a day at least. That the disease started to progress really, really fast. And luckily, when that started to happen, my wife and I were living in a we had just moved into a trailer, and I was still I had already stopped working, but I was still in the process of getting on disability. I didn't realize what a long and arduous process that actually is. But I mean, it took about a year or two to finally get it all worked out. But what that taught me, and I'm glad that it happened when it did, because I was pretty young, so I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. But I'm glad that it happened then, because it really taught me a valuable lesson that anything like that, it's easy for even when we know something's coming, it's so easy to not be prepared for it. And when that thing happens, then it's like, wow, how am I going to eat today? Because there were days there were a lot of days I had like that, and luckily that I can look back on as like a learning experience. Now, if something like that were to happen to me again and I wasn't prepared, I don't think the same thing would, because back then, there were a lot of special circumstances that God used to make sure I was fed and everything, but I don't expect that would happen again because that was a learning experience. Now you know better. Yeah, exactly. Now it's like, okay, God's given me the tools. I know what I'm doing. I'm more mature now, so I can get on the ball with this stuff. So, we started after coming out of that, we really started investing in a lot of like canned foods and things that things that don't go bad as and I mean, even when we moved, we moved. It seems like we moved more food than we did clothes. And so I mean, it was kind of nice to have that, and but so yeah, I mean that's just like my own personal experience with that, but it's definitely important to be prepared. And well, that actually brings up a good question. Is there such a thing as being too prepared or taking this stuff too far? And if so, where's the line?
I think, and to be honest, that's another good question. There are people out there that what happens over time is this becomes their god.
Right.
And it's just like anything else. I mean, I look at how many people are Monday Night Football freaks. I don't know what team you guys have up there or something like that.
I don't even know. I don't follow it.
But it's the same thing. I mean, look how many people are football freaks. Well, that's their god, or basketball freaks, or baseball freaks, or whatever, or prepper freaks, or again, it's learning to live your life in a balance. And that's why I call my first book, it's Preparedness Lifestyle. It isn't something that where you just go out and spend a couple grand on a bunch of food. Okay, check that one off the list.
Right.
No, you start learning, because once you have your food going and everything, something else that we then started doing is like I've got a dehydrator. I've got or I had a pressure canner. I would all these other things then that at least what I would be able to do is help supplement and grow that food supply by doing a garden or something. I'd be able to can and preserve and dehydrate the food that I was producing so that I would be able to store that up also. And so it's just there's things, again, it becomes a lifestyle. When the kids were living at home, because now it's just me and Tracy, but when the kids were living at home and everything, I had my food dehydrator going all the time. The kids knew then not to throw away any food. And what I did is I would dehydrate everything, leftovers. We just stopped putting leftovers in the refrigerator because it became a science experiment in 6 weeks. Nobody would eat it. But if I would dehydrate it, I had these jars of soup makings. And so every time you have that little bit of leftover corn or beans or whatever, I would dehydrate that up and then throw it in this jar. And then anytime I'd make, because the kids would love my soup, and so I always had, anytime I had soup makings, I've got a full mason jar now, I can make soup. So we would always, have that and everything, or salsa. My kids and family, everybody loves my salsa. Anytime they come over, I have to make like a gallon of salsa. Well, nobody ever eats it all. So what I do is I dehydrate the salsa, and then I run it through the blender, and it makes an incredible seasoning powder.
Oh,
and
wow.
I use it on chicken and eggs, and I mean it's insane. The salsa powder. And so I've learned to dehydrate a lot of stuff, so I'm not throwing away a lot of food. And either I'm saving it for soup or this or that, or I'm making something with it. I'm dehydrating. I'm storing it somehow so that it's less things that become science experiments in the back of the refrigerator. And so, my food dehydrator, it's an Excalibur 9 tray, is one of my better investments. I love that thing. Another great investment. In fact, this is for the listeners right now, kind of a little bit of a plug, but I represent a company called Shelf Reliance, the best survival food out there. And
Cool.
my kids were raised on this stuff, and we ate it during the latter years when the kids were still living at home and everything like that. Teenagers will eat you out of house and home. Well, what we
Right.
started to do is we started to utilize our Thrive food and augment that, and we started saving about $500 to $700 a month in grocery bills because we were now eating. We had enough Thrive food on hand that we now started rotating it and eating it.
Wow.
And so we were able to augment our grocery bill greatly. And again, like I said, we saved about $500 to $700 every month. But the reason I say that is the Shelf Reliance or Thrive has this thing called the Harvester 72. And so here's the plug, folks. Right now they're on sale, and you can go to my website and get them on sale. But they're going to be about $300. But if you contact me, ray.gano at prophezine.com, you can get this for, I think, I want to say $267. I can order it through my back office for you, and that's not including tax and shipping. But I can get it for you for $267 or somewhere around that price right now. So if you want, and the reason I say this Harvester Shelf is like a self-rotating can holder. And it's about 5 feet tall, 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, and it holds like 450 cans. This thing is great. I mean, as long as we had it and everything, I have never filled it to date. I mean, it's never been filled. But it's a great way to store your cans. I mean, all those cans in a small foot space or something. But it's called the Harvester 72. It is one of the best. That money spent for that, and then also my food dehydrator, is probably the best money we've ever spent.
And saving so much, it eventually pays for itself.
Exactly. And this is something else too, with National Survival Month being this month, and we're coming into the holidays. Right now is the best time to start preparing, because it being National Preparedness Month, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can buy on super sale right now. But with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming into the season, a lot of food is going to be on sale. So now is a really good time. You can buy cases of corn and beans and cream of mushroom soup and this and that, and all these things, because during the holiday season, food prices, they always have sales, especially Walmart has great sales on food. And so this is a great chance to start saving now, so that when these times come, when Thanksgiving time comes and everything, you can go in there and just stock up like a mad fool on buy stuffing mix like crazy, or all these things. I mean, that's what we did. And then you buy 20, 30 boxes of stuffing for 75 cents a box or $1 a box, and you hold on to it. And so now when you need something for dinner, guess what? Stuffing takes 15 minutes to make, or 10 minutes, I think, right? It's nothing. So, throw in you got stuffing. Now you don't, that's one side dish you now don't have to buy. Buy a couple cases of green beans. Boom, you now have green beans. That's a side dish you now don't have to buy. Corn, same thing. All these, mashed potatoes, just buy tons of that stuff. And then you can use it throughout the year, and you're now not having to buy that stuff, and you can then redirect your money to buy other stuff. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah,
By
absolutely.
buying things on sale and everything right now, because now with the holiday seasons, and again, Thanksgiving is the best time to start your food preps, because all this stuff is on big time sale, and you can get a ton of food for a little bit of money, versus if you would do this in May. If you decided to buy these cases of beans and corn and potatoes and this and that in May, it would cost you 3 times the price.
Right.
Whereas in Thanksgiving, since it's all on cutthroat sale already, especially at Walmart, it's go in and buy cases, and because it's super affordable. And in fact, sometimes in some grocery stores, if you go in and talk to the manager or something like that and say, hey, listen, I want to buy a case of this, a case of that, a case of this, we're wanting to feed whoever, make somebody up. I'm with the Peck Association, and we want to buy some whole food. If I buy these cases and everything, could you please maybe give us a break? We're not a 501c or anything like that, but we're hey, it's the holidays, and we're the Peck Association.
Right.
So sometimes the manager will, because he wants to move food, he wants to move product, and so if you're willing to buy cases, sometimes talking to the manager will help. So,
Wow.
And you want to do this also kind of during the morning time, around 10, 11 o'clock, so that you have his attention. They're easy to get to. They're done doing meetings, all this other junk, and you can usually talk to them about from 10 to noon, and then from 2 to 3 or 1 to 3. The afternoon starts getting crazy. But if you can get your manager, do this, plan ahead. And again, this is where it's planning. Start saving money now. Get a little mason jar and start sticking all your dollar bills in there, or start sticking change and blah blah blah. Have that be your food prep fund to get you started and everything. And then when have it planned, so when these sales go on sale, you're able to go down there and stock up. And the thing is, with this Harvester 72 shelf. And again, this is a great price, folks, because if you go on the Shelf Reliance website by itself right now, it's going to be about $400.
Wow.
And right now they're running about 3 something. They're kind of having they're ramping up into the sale, because they know that Thanksgiving's coming up too. This is a prepper's time. All the preppers know to buy food during Thanksgiving and Christmas, so they start selling these shelves now because they know preppers are going to start filling them up. And everything. So, but you can buy them off my website, like I said, for about $300. But if you get hold of me, I'll save you even more money.
That's awesome.
It's that's a great investment, and it's not me. And folks, all I'm doing is I'm earning 10%. So 10% of 260. Do the math. Boy, gee whiz, I've just made $26. So it's not like I'm in it for the money. I'm in it to help people, and I know that these things have helped me and my family. And especially if you get teenagers, this shelf is help. Oh my goodness, yeah, my son was eating this out of house and home, but The shelf was great. So you can go buy a case of stuff, fill the shelves up, and it will last you for a while and everything, even if you got teenagers. But yeah, these are things and tips that you can start doing now and start getting ready for, because the food sales are going to start popping up, and because the holidays are. Because once we move into January, February, March, food prices are going to go through the roof. I mean, it's already speculated. The food reports and stuff that I've been seeing and everything are already speculating a horrible 2015 first quarter in food prices.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So whatever you buy today, again, look at it as an investment. And by buying in bulk, like I said, okay, you buy 20 boxes of stuffing. Okay, you're not going to eat it every day, but at least you got it, so that you've now saved that money. And by buying, a case of beans, again, same thing. You're looking at it as money saved. What you're buying now is an investment for down the road, for money that you won't be spending.
Yeah.
So, that money becomes saved money too, because then you can reallocate that money to maybe buying a dehydrator, or maybe buying, a Glock 19, or buying, whatever. So you start learning to project your money out, and because again, Tracy, and we've been working cash since 2001. We're
That's
cash
good.
only.
Yeah.
And so we've learned all this, and this is how we operate. And you learn to you don't need all this stuff right away, and you start saving for stuff. And if it's important to you, you'll save. Believe me, you will. I easily it took me 4 weeks to save up enough money to buy my Glock 19. No problem. Wow. I was very motivated, and so all my guns and stuff I save up for. So yeah, I'm always motivated for my guns and stuff, and it's interesting, when you're motivated, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And everything. So, but yeah, so
that is awesome.
Yeah.
That there, even in just that little bit, there's so much helpful information, that things that I say this almost every episode. My listeners are probably getting sick of me saying it, but I love doing this show, because the reason it's called the Sharpening, I feel like I'm getting sharpened as well,
Oh yeah.
And I even though I'm the host and whatever, but I love having guests on where I can learn something too. And we're relatively prepared, but there's always room for improvement. And you've already given me so many things to think about that that I hadn't considered before, and that stuff that is relatively simple to add into our routine. So that's fantastic. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you want to touch on before we close out the show?
Well, how to get hold of me.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. If people want to know more about you or order your book, where can they go?
All my how to get hold of me, first of all, is go to my website, www.prophezine.com, PROPHEZINE. We're working on a new website, and so I'm hoping that sooner or later we'll have this new website up and running and everything like that. But I'm moving more from Bible prophecy to what I'm calling resources for the remnant, and I believe in helping people. I truly do, and I have a lot of stuff for free on my website and everything, but also I do have a subscription, and it's $10 a month. And again, I for the information that we've been putting out, and I've been, a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you right now on the show is information that I've been sharing on my website. I mean, we've got a whole prepper library. I've got like 125 ebooks and PDFs and how-tos and everything in our prepper library. I've got what I call the underground, and that's an area in my website that is geared specifically for people who feel the need to start building an underground church. And so I've been getting involved in that arena, is helping people prepare for that and start looking at technology and everything. So on my website, I talk about what's called BitTorrent or Gosh, what are some of the hush mail or some of these other, keeping your privacy, or how to reduce your digital footprint, and all these are things that I think that the underground church, because I do believe that eventually Christians are going to become persecuted,
Right.
and so I believe that we need to, the more that we can do now to prepare for that hard time, the better. And what really motivated me to do that is I was reading some of what's called Richard Wambaugh's book. He was a Romanian pastor, and suffered greatly and everything, and was persecuted and everything in Romania. I just got done reading Corrie ten Boom's book, The Hiding Place, and everything. So here's people that think, oh, it can't happen to me. Well, it did. And so if you have the attitude that it can't happen, talk to the Chinese Christians right now. And in fact, I was interesting. I met with some missionary friends just these past couple weekends. They were missionaries to Mongolia, and some of the stories they were telling us about the underground Chinese church is just heartbreaking and just mind blowing. And it's like, those are the real Christians, and these people are being persecuted like crazy. And so these are things that I think that we need to start learning. We need to start doing. So again, do we need it right now? No, we don't. But you want to have this knowledge and understanding now, so that when the poo hits the fan, it's a lot easier to move into that mode, versus having to be behind the 8 ball and learning, have that high learning curve and everything. Start learning this stuff now, start assimilating this stuff now, start practicing this stuff now, so that if we are forced to go underground, if we are become persecuted and everything like that, you have, at least something to go on now, versus nothing. And again, it's that whole preparedness lifestyle. So I've got underground, I've got our preparedness, we get tons of articles, and I send out my 30 to 40 page newsletter every Monday. Been doing that now for years. I send out daily news on Friday and Saturday, sometimes depending, I don't know, but usually I do it on Fridays. But today, on Fridays, I send out what I call my financial and survival news. And for example, what is it today? I sent out, let me read you real quickly what my headlines were today. Today's headlines on my financial and survival news. They're coming for your bank account. A very good article that I subscribe to a lot of financial newsletters and everything, but this is by a sovereign man or something. He does a financial sovereignty, being independent and everything. Atheist Bullies, Inane Judges, Schools and God by Bill Wilson. 20 Inconvenient Truths About Teotihuacan by Lisa Bedford. Authority and Stereotypes Post-Collapse. The Humble Bow, is this the ultimate SHTF weapon? Lifestyle changes to make today to prepare for tomorrow. And so that's just, it's just the headlines of what I sent out today in my financial and survival news. And so I send those out on Fridays or either Saturday. And then on Sundays, I'm doing a Pal Talk Bible study. And sometimes they're lectures, well, they're always lectures, but sometimes they're Bible studies. Sometimes I'm in there actually lecturing about preparedness. And what I usually do is I'll ask the people, okay, folks, what do you want to learn this week or this month? And, we want to learn about preparedness. Okay, well, I'll focus on preparedness this month. Or, we want to learn about, how to live the right life in the last days, or how do we live being a servant warrior, or how do we do this, or so depending on what my readers and everything want is what I'll do in that Pal Talk room on Sundays and everything. But I charge $10 a month. I have a lot of stuff for free, but you want all the good, juicy stuff that is going to really help support us, man. I mean, I'm a tent-making ministry, meaning that I make what I sell. Yeah. And that's what helps me get out and do the gospel and to share this stuff and everything like that. And so, it's my books that help me. It's my newsletter that helps me and everything like that. And I get so angry at people. Oh, you're selling the gospel. No, I'm not. I give so much stuff away for free. It isn't even funny. So,
I can definitely relate to you there.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm on disability, and that just about barely covers rent, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So my wife works, and then I do this. this is all I do. This is where
Yeah,
this is where whatever money comes out of this is where and
exactly.
and I try to I have just like you, like this show is completely free.
Yeah,
Um, I've never but yeah, so the only thing that I really sell are like books and things like that,
yeah,
like you do. And yeah,
yeah,
we got. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
yeah,
I certainly have no problem with that, and I
yeah.
know that there are those out there who do feel that way, and it's like, well, when you don't, when the, when you're doing these types of things, we're not. If we were in it for money, we certainly picked the wrong the
Oh,
wrong
yeah,
avenue.
exactly. And that's my wife and I, and probably your wife and you probably have these conversations. And there's times why don't we become a 501c3? You dye your hair pink, Tracy, and put on tons of makeup, cry
Right.
a lot, and then I'll have nice shiny white teeth and airplane hair and a nice suit. And then we'll go out there and sell prayer cloths and this holy water or whatever else
Yeah.
gimmick we wanted to, and make
Blessed
millions.
oil.
Yeah, blessed oil and all this other junk and make millions. But yeah, no, and it's like, and I tell people I'm very open because I'm not
Yeah.
a 501c and everything. And I tell people all the time, because when there I do get people say, oh man, you're just in it for the money. And I go, okay, tell you what, buddy, here's what. Can you do math? I have 115 paid $10 a month subscribers.
Mhm.
115 $10 a month subscribers. Do the math. That's how much money I make from my $10 a month subscribers.
Yep.
Okay? So, how much do you make at your job? And
Yeah.
I says, now, I get up at 7 o'clock. I do my little commute to my computer, turn it on, and in fact, right now it's 7:30 at night right now. But I'm probably not going to be off my computer till about 9:30. Run the math on that, and
Mhm.
I think I figured I'm earning $3.15 an hour.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, are you willing to do $3.15 an hour, and then still pay the bills and everything like that too? And people say, oh well, that's what I do. And
Exactly.
so if you want to get on me for how dare I want to put food on the table and maybe keep the lights on, so, but you know we're doing it because there's a burning in our bones.
Right.
And it's Jeremiah talks about it, I think, in Jeremiah 31 or 33. He's getting mad at Israel, and he's shaking his fist at God. It's like, God, these stupid Israelites, they're not listening to me. They don't do anything I tell them to. They're going to hell in a handbasket. Blah 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 blah. I quit. But there's a burning into my bones and I can't shut up, and so I'm going to stick with you, God, and I'm going to keep on doing it.
Yep.
And that's all of us. That's
Oh yeah.
being the watchman on the wall. I mean, we can't help ourselves but do it, and God is good. And this is something that Tracy and I always reflect on, when times are tough or tight or whatever. And it's like, we haven't missed rent yet,
Mhm.
but I mean, we've gotten really close,
Oh yeah.
but we haven't missed rent. We haven't missed the electric bill. We haven't missed, some of these other things. We have a roof over our head. We have food on the table. It's rice and beans at times, but you know what? It's food on the table.
That's right.
And so we can't complain too much because officially God is, he's held up his bargain, his part of the
Yeah.
bargain. Roof, food, clothes, so he's doing it. We may not like it or anything like that, but you know what? God even blesses us, and there's times that God will bless us here and there, and like a new sword for me. I get to buy a sword or two maybe every year, and so I
Right.
save up all through the year to buy a new sword, and my swords cost $125, and
Right.
so that tells you how much we're. I know that you can sympathize and
Oh
everything. So
yeah. Yeah.
we're not
We're
we're
not.
not in it. We're not in it for the money.
Exactly. Yeah. We're not 501c3 either.
Yeah.
And I even put on my donation, because I have a donation page and everything, and
Yeah.
it's kind of funny, like there have been a couple of times that I've written blogs and stuff like that and said this is going on and we
Mhm.
really could use some help, but I do it in a way that it I don't know, it's kind of funny, like I would think somebody coming across it might almost read it and think that I'm trying to discourage people from donating
Mhm.
to us, because
Mhm.
I want to make sure, like, because I say in there, you're under no obligation. I am not going to promise you any blessings or anything like that if you
Mhm.
choose to donate to our ministry and help us out. Um, I'm not gonna at all tell you that, God's gonna do this or that for you, like, like the
Mhm.
Osteens would or something like that. I can't do that. I don't know what God's gonna do. For all I know, the enemy could attack you just for trying to be a nice person. So,
Yeah.
you can't claim it on your taxes. So that
Yeah.
that option is not available.
Yep. Yep.
I go through all these things, and I say, make for absolute sure that God's leading you to give before you give. Do not give us a thing
Yeah.
unless you know that God is leading you to do so. And if you feel like that, if you don't know, then don't give anything. We can always use more
Yep.
prayers, and that doesn't cost you a thing. And a lot of
Mhm.
times, prayers is more effective anyway, because,
Yeah.
I mean, if God wanted to, he could just like drop a $20 bill on our table, as an
Yeah.
answer to somebody's prayer. And actually, there was one time that happened, so we could eat for one
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
But I don't. That's not something I would rely on necessarily.
Yep.
But so I always go through the whole spiel every time I bring up donation,
Mhm.
because I don't want uh,
Mhm.
I don't want people to think that we're in this for the wrong reasons. It's
Yep.
not. Definitely not about money. I mean, like today, I stay pretty open about that stuff too. I just released my new book a couple months ago, and this has been my highest selling book so far. But that's at I think 40 copies in
Mhm.
1 month. That's really not a lot,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
after royalty, I just get royalty. I get like maybe I think it's like 10. Rough estimate is about $10 per book. That's like
Wow.
my cut.
That's good.
So yeah, it's all right, but 40 highest grossing month ever for like everything was this past month at $400. So
Wow.
making $400 a month, that's $100 a week. I made more than that at McDonald's, and I was still struggling. So,
Yeah.
going through that with all this stuff, medically, with the hip replacement and all this expensive medical stuff, it's like, if I was at all in this for the money, I certainly got into the wrong thing. I must be the
Yeah.
biggest idiot in the world. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's not. And in all honesty, I've really only had maybe one or two people ever try to give me a hard time about that.
Mhm.
But and
People
sorry, go ahead.
people usually give me a hard time because usually what I've done is I've struck a chord with them, and it isn't really the money. It's that I've basically stepped on their holy cow's toes in
Yeah.
one way or another, and they're mad at me because how dare I bring that up,
Yep.
and
And then
so
they
they're
have to have
gonna
something. Yep.
to re and so they hit me up with the money thing. You're selling the gospel. I was like, no, I'm not. So, but over the years, we've just learned to let it just, go off our back and everything like that. And it's just,
Yeah.
people are going to be people. But the thing is and this is what I tell people too, is I'm here to help and preach and teach to the people who have an ear to hear.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't have an ear to hear, then like it or not, you're not my audience, and I
There
have
you
no
go.
qualms telling you that. I mean, that's if you think I'm mean and unloving and all this other stuff, then hey, I'm sorry, but and actually no, I'm not. But I'm here to help people who have an ear to hear, and
Exactly.
that's all what I'm about. In fact, if you read I have like 20 reviews for my Ebola book, and one of the reviews I wrote, I mean, one of the reviews that one of the people wrote was really nice, was really sweet, and what he or she, I don't know what it was, but he said that uh, he was talking about how good, his name is Concerned American, and he says, uh, great book, what gave me 5 stars, blah blah blah. He says, on a side note, I don't know Ray personally, but we've exchanged emails. Several times I've sent Ray emails from his prophecy for his prophecy website with questions on preparation. He was very helpful and even did some extra research in order to answer my questions and meet my preparation needs. Why did he do that? Because he wanted to help me. That's what this book is about, helping people get prepared. It's get this easy to read, easy to understand book. It will help you get prepared. And to be honest, I don't know who he is. I can't remember the email that he's talking about or something, but that's what I do. I see that as my job.
Yep.
My job is to help people. My job is to help prepare. My job is to help inform and educate and equip. And if I'm not doing that, then guess what? I'm not doing my job. And if I'm not going to do my job, then guess what? God can give me a pink slip.
Yep.
And I do not want to go back working for the man again. So, but that's just the way I see it. This is my job. And the thing is Josh, I love my job, and you probably do too. I love my job. I mean, otherwise, how do I get behind this computer and work 12, 14-hour days?
Yep.
And then do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I think
with gusto.
Yeah, I think that's what there are, a lot of people that don't realize, and for me, it's such a small percentage that people ever really, the amount of people that are actually helped and actually, stick with me and everything, compared against the people that are just, whatever. It's such a small percentage of people that ever really give me too hard of a time. But a lot of that is because, well, when I first started out, I would get, I'd get upset, and I'd, spend really a lot of wasted time just trying to argue with these people. And after a while, I realized, I'm taking time away from somebody that can actually be helped by what I'm putting out there. And
here's a tip for you. Is save all those emails that you write to the grumpy people, because there's going to be more grumpy people. And so you save them, and then when the next grumpy person comes along that has the kind of same grumpiness, copy and paste that.
There you go.
And no time wasted. No thought,
awesome.
No time, no getting chapped up or anything like that. You just copy, paste, send. Okay, now I can go back to work.
And there you go.
That's what I've learned to do. And
I think too, I think what a lot of people might not realize, and I don't expect them to, because you don't really know all the ins and outs of this kind of thing unless you're really in it, or unless you hear somebody talk about it like what we're doing. But a lot of what we do, at least I can speak from this personally, and it sounds like this is a lot of what you do too. A lot of it is answering emails and trying to. That's what a vast majority of it can turn out to be. Yeah. And I've always said that with people who's like, well, like selling the gospel, selling books, you should put this out for free. It's like, well, the funny thing is, I've never turned anybody away. Like if somebody comes to me and messaged me on Facebook or email or something, and they have a question, there have been times that I've copied and pasted sections of my book to answer their question without, I'm not, because I'm not going to turn them away. My job here isn't to make money. My job here is to help sharpen and inform people and get them where they need to be with how God's leading me to do that. So I've never turned anybody away for that. And and it sounds like you're doing the same, and that's great.
And that is the same. I mean, and to date, I don't, anybody who honestly comes and asks, because I have had many, actually. Not many, but I've had a number of people come and say, hey, Ray, I love what you're doing. I can't pay this anymore. I can't pay this. Can you feel it in your heart to give me a free, subscription? I always do. Yeah. And the thing is you can always tell who's poor-mouthing you, because I've had people poor-mouth me before, and it's like, yeah, come on.
Yeah.
You can read between the lines and all this other junk and everything. They're just being cheap. But on the other hand, there's people out there that are truly in need, and I will never turn any of those people away, ever. And I will always be there for them and everything. And my deal is, because something I do believe in is never give anything away for free. because when you give things away for free, people no longer value it.
That's right.
And so my work is valuable because I'm working for the Lord. And I consider the Lord valuable. And so we should never cheapen or look at our stuff as cheap or free or this and that. So I always tell people who I do give it to, and I go, listen, this comes at a price. Your price is that you're going to email as many people as you can, telling them about my website and prophecy, and you're going to encourage them. You're going to get on Facebook and tell them about me. You're going to be doing this and doing that. And so that's the deal. If you agree to this, and every once in a while I will write you and ask you for a status report.
Yeah.
And so be ready to answer. And I had this one lady, she was really sweet. She used to write me every week. I sent 5 emails to these people, and I did this, and she would send me a status report every week.
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, what a blessing. What a sweet lady. And but yeah, she was one of my free people. And I think
That's
she
awesome.
still is. But so that's but so those are the things that I do. But yeah, I don't believe in selling the gospel. I don't sell the gospel, but I've got to feed my family. Otherwise I'm worse than the infidel.
Yeah.
And so I got to do what I got to do. But if people really look at it, I'm asking $10 a month. I mean, okay, that means you need to give up a stinking Starbucks latte.
Right.
Or 2. You got to give up 2 lattes
a month.
For a month. Or maybe skip out on video night, or just people do videos anymore. Totally Netflix,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what I mean. I mean, it's $10 a month. It costs more to feed a family of 4 lunch at McDonald's than it costs to support what we do here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, and I'm sure that you get these emails. I got this email from a lady in Uganda, and she's one of my readers, and she goes, Ray, I wanted to let you know how effective you are. She says, I love printing out your newsletter, and I read it on the way to work on the bus and everything. She says, I had this man reading over my shoulder, and when I got up to leave, he asked if he can have it. Wow. And because he loved what you were writing. And so she's sent me several stories like that, how prophecy is going out in Uganda. And like I had this other thing. I had some readers when I first started back in 1991. They became good friends. We used to email each other. I still don't. We've never met. But what happened, he wrote me about 6 years ago and says, Ray, I don't know if you remember me. I was in South Africa, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to let you know that because of you and prophesying, we started a political party here in South Africa called the Christian Democratic Party. We've got multiple people now in their Congress or Parliament or whatever it's called, and then one other person who's been appointed by one of the government agencies. And they also have some mayors in some cities who are now part of the Christian Democratic Party. But he said, because of you, me, my wife, and several other people are basically their Bible study group. They used to read my prophesying all the time for their Bible study group and talk and study and everything. And he said, because of that, their Bible study group formed the Christian Democratic Party of South Africa. And to date, it's still active. It's still got people, and it's slowly growing and everything. So it's like my little stinking newsletter helped create a political party for political change, Christian political change in South Africa.
Wow, what a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And then, I get, and I'm sure you get like emails from China and Vietnam and this, and I get all these emails all the time from places like that. And
sure.
So prophesying is being effective. And we're doing stuff, and I get, it's exciting to me to see these things and know how that my work, my little newsletter, is changing people's lives, and I get emails from time to time how people have said, I'm now a Christian because of you. I read your article and it caused me to accept the Lord.
Those are always the best, aren't they?
Yeah, like, wow, man. You know.
Just recently, and I didn't think that this would even end up like that. But I started doing these little short videos. They're just called mini study speed studies, and
Hmm.
they're just little like 10, 15 minute videos about different things. And I did one about uh, it was does suicide lead to hell? And
Hmm.
the base it was right after Robin Williams' suicide, and I was seeing
Yeah.
all these Christians saying, oh, he's
Hmm.
burning in hell, just all these things. I
Hmm.
was getting a little I was getting a little concerned about that, 'cause, like, if you're representing Christianity, don't say that kind of stuff. But well, anyway, the video wasn't at all like admonishing that, but it was okay. Well, let's look at this scripturally. Does one taking his own life mean, like, for absolute sure that that person is going to end up in hell? So that's what that
Hmm.
video was about.
Hmm.
And I really didn't think anything of it, but maybe a couple weeks after I had it up, I was contacted on Facebook from a 15-year-old kid, and he said that he saw the video on YouTube and he liked it, and he had some questions, and so we talked a little bit for like an hour or so, I think, and I ended up asking him if he was saved. I said, "Is that something that you've ever really thought about?" And he said no, and he said he knew a little bit about it, but didn't really have a full grasp on it. And I said, well, this is basically what it was, and I told him gave him the whole spiel and everything, and he's like, okay, and he didn't really say too much about it that day. He's just like, okay, that's interesting, and well, then the next day he got in contact with me again, because I'm on Facebook all the time, probably more than I
Yeah.
should be, but it's things like this that come up, that it's a good thing that I am. But
Yeah.
I was on Facebook again, and he messaged me again, and he was like, I was thinking about what you said, and I think that's something that I want to do, and he asked if I would lead him in prayer, like right there on online, which is something that I never even really, I've never texted a prayer before,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. And so he prayed, and he actually typed out his prayer, what he was praying, and he said, how was that? So that was great. And they said, well, you're saved. That's what you just did. And so ever since then, he'll get in touch with me every day or every couple of days with
Hmm.
just basic Christianity questions and stuff. He's a really bright kid, really curious, which I love. And we started praying together just through Facebook like that. And it's things like that. You never know how something's going to turn out, because I never thought that a video like that would lead to somebody getting saved, because
Yeah.
it's does suicide lead to hell? Like, I just didn't really put that together,
Yeah.
that would lead to that, but it did. And it's those little blessings that, well, they're actually huge blessings, but that
Hmm.
keep us, they keep us going. And so yeah, I can definitely relate to you there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's neat, and it's something um, one day, think about it. When we finally get to heaven, how many people are going to walk up to each of us, and you, or walk up to me and say, "Hey, man, I'm here in heaven because of you," and you
Yeah.
won't even know him from Adam.
Yep.
And it's like, that's it. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and it's like, wow, cool. Because there's times, and I don't know about you, but there's times that I like, okay, is anybody listening?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I feel like that lone voice in the wilderness, and it's like, is anybody listening to me? And then I'll get an email from people, or this, that, or the other, and it's like, okay, I'm making the difference. So.
Yeah, it's funny, because I was kind of going through that with that video, because it got, I guess I did expect it to get some backlash, because everyone's got an opinion, but I got a little bit of backlash from it, but not too much, but it was
Hmm.
enough that made me wonder, well, is this really worth it? Because if this is the result, I don't really know how edifying this is, at least
Hmm.
like this topic, or this way of doing it with the speed studies. And because that was like the fifth or sixth one. I don't have
Hmm.
many of them out right yet. But so I was thinking, in those terms at that time, and then it was right when I was thinking that kid contacted me, and I was like, wow, well, if I wouldn't have done that, that kid might not have might not have gotten saved. And so yeah, you never know what kind of different. And then that got me thinking, well, what about all the people that haven't contacted me? Because I'm sure
Hmm.
that there are people that are blessed in some way that don't contact. Because I know that I myself, um, I don't contact everybody that I'm blessed by. There are
Yeah.
times that like I'll listen to a podcast or watch something on YouTube, and I'll get something out of it. But I rarely ever, I mean, unless I'm going to invite them to be on the show, or if it's just connect in some way like that. I mean, I really rarely ever actually try to contact the person and track them down to let them know. I mean, I will every once in a while, but it just doesn't. Most of the time, it's like I just look at it like, oh, thanks God. I just give the glory to God. But so that kind of helped me realize, get that because I think all of us who are in this do feel like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Is anybody listening? Even the ones that are like really up there and really popular, but well, in the fringe Christian community, I don't know how many could really even be considered popular, by comparison to
Hmm.
like Osteen's or something like that. But I think that with everybody that I've gotten to know personally and talked to, we've all felt like that at times, and God always seems to give us those gentle reminders, like, no, you're doing, I have you doing this for a
Hmm.
reason. Just keep doing what you're doing, and so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I can relate to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting to, I love serving the Lord. I love doing what I do. Um, it's interesting, because I think God equips us with a special ability to do. I look at a lot of bad news. I read a ton of bad news, and I've been recently looking at some of these very bad videos and everything, and um, I mean, they could affect you.
Yeah,
I know people is like, dude, how do you read all this bad news and not put a gun to your head? And it just tends to roll right off me most times.
yeah,
I have to admit there are times that it does catch up to me and everything, but mostly, it doesn't really bug me.
yeah,
So it's another news, but I think that's one of those little blessings that God gives people like us so that we're able to do what we do and get that news out there because I weed through a ton of news and everything, and it's just a lot of it is pretty bad. I mean, there's news out there that I purposely don't report on because it's bad,
yeah,
and you don't want to. There's times I know that my readers are just being depressed. You can tell it,
hmm,
and you don't want to kick a horse while they're down and stuff. So there's just times I don't share certain news things because right now they don't need to hear it. They know the world sucks.
yeah.
So, I don't need to hammer them with it. So,
Yeah, exactly. And God gives us discernment for those types of things. And I've tried to, because a lot of like a lot of this show deals with spiritual preparedness and now physical preparedness as well. But we deal with a lot in the show is like it seems like the theme of this show is usually bad stuff is coming, so here's what you need to know. you
yeah.
and there are times that it does kind of get like that where it's like, well, I do feel this topic is important, but I don't want to like bum people out or get them all
Mm-hmm.
depressed and hating their lives over it or anything. So I try to balance out those kinds of episodes, and usually it turns out pretty good anyway because uh, I've been asked before, like, why I don't really take the time to edit too much of my show because I give a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ums and uhs and I stutter a lot and I do a lot of that stuff. Well, the reason I don't is because I kind of want that stuff in there because it humanizes it. I think it
Yeah.
makes it. If anything, it gives some people something to laugh at. So even
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking about something real serious and then they hear me going, because I do that a lot,
Yeah.
or see me going off in all these rabbit trails and different lines of thought. At the
Mm-hmm.
very least, I think I tend to leave that in there because I think it kind of lightens the mood a bit, but still the
Mm-hmm.
information is getting out. So there's always those little things that God will lead us to do, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
think it's great.
well, I think again, I don't know, I think I've enjoyed doing this show. This has been a lot
Yeah.
of fun, and it's
Oh
been.
yeah.
I hope that you leave all 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm going to. This is going to have to be split up into a two-part episode, but
Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, all of this is gonna.
All
I,
this
I,
is good
I
stuff that I know that will, if it, I mean, it'll encourage others and encourage other ministries and help people. And because these are the kind of interviews that I like to do. These are what I call fireside chats.
yeah.
Basically, you turn on the recorder and start talking.
It's funny for the listener, right? We were talking before the show about how like sometimes that'll happen because I was just recently on Rob Skiba's show where that
Mm-hmm.
happened, and we were kind of talking about that, and I was like, well, if it happens, it happens, but I have these, I have these questions, so, and it's funny
Mm-hmm.
because right on the very last question, the very last
Mm-hmm.
question I have, that's when it happened. Because I was like, the last thing I said, before we close out the show, is there anything you want to add, or how can people get in touch with you? And now we've been talking for what, like an hour since then or so, or
Yeah.
it's been quite a while, and yeah, but that's always good. I love it when that happens. I always keep that stuff in the show. I don't ever. The only time I'll ever edit anything out is if a guest like actually asks me like, "Hey, I said a really dumb thing. I don't want that in the show. Can you take it out?" And
Mm-hmm.
and actually that's really only happened like a couple of times, so that even
Mm-hmm.
that isn't really that often. But yeah, so I always leave everything in, and this is definitely staying in because I think that we, even outside of the whole Ebola thing, just this last little section here, we've touched on a lot of things that
Oh
somebody
yeah.
out, God leads discussion like that, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe that there are people out there, there's somebody out there that needed to hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
And
how I look at it.
that's the way that I look at it too. Someone out there needs to hear it. They're going to be encouraged when they hear it and
Hmm.
things. So yeah, yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Well, I'm all out of questions.
Well, I really appreciate you asking me to be on the show. I appreciate all the time that you've dedicated. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed because we've never really talked before or
Oh,
anything,
this
and
is our
so I
first
thought,
time really meeting.
yeah, this has been a lot of fun talking to you, getting to know you, and it's nice to see that we have a lot in common. We see a lot of things in the same light,
Yeah.
and it's an encouragement to me, because it's nice to know that there's, and I know you think about this too. Is like, man, are we crazy?
Yeah.
How Tracy and I have those conversations kind of a lot. Are we
Yeah.
crazy? Am I just being a tinfoil hat conspiracy nut? Am I crazy? And it's nice to know that there's other people out there like you who are not as crazy after all. And
Yeah.
so that helps me realize I'm not as crazy. And if we are crazy, then we're all in good company. So,
Yeah. Exactly. I look at it the same way. That's another great benefit from doing a show like this is I get to talk to people who are, if not as crazy, even more crazy than myself. So
yeah.
that always helps. And I say that lightly. I mean, I don't believe any of us are really actually crazy, but it is a nice it's a nice reminder that I'm because there are a lot of times like we've mentioned before that there are times that with doing what we do, especially because it is kind of, at least for me, it's an isolated environment. I do this in my
Hmm.
room, all the time. It's basically like you said, 10 to 14 hours a day sometimes, and it can be kind of a lonely.
Yeah.
Lonely job, and
Yeah.
we connect with people online all the time, but with actual personal interactions and things, it can be kind of lonely. So, there are times where it's like, well, is this, what kind of impact is this having, at what expense, so
Hmm.
it's always, that's what I love doing about the show, because I can connect with people like you who, yeah, I mean, we've never met before. This is our first time meeting, and actually I thought going into this that I've made a horrible first impression because I've been kind of stringing you along the past couple of weeks, like
Ah,
trying to
no.
figure everything out to get you on the show, and I'm thinking, man, I'm over here talking to the preparedness guy about being on the show, and I have to keep canceling, and I'm woefully unprepared. Like, man, this is not looking good on me. But
I didn't even notice, to be quite honest.
oh,
So,
good. That's good. But yeah. So I mean, it's just been a blessing getting to know you and talk to you, and you've got some amazing information. And I want to say too, for people who might be on a tight budget, this book's only $5.
yeah.
And I
Well,
think that
My survival book actually was published. Defender Publishing publishes that. Survive the
Oh,
Coming
okay.
Storm. And so that's an actually published book, and I think it's somewhere like $7. I'm a big Kindle person,
Yeah.
but it's like $7 or $8 on Kindle. But my other books are usually $5, and I have another one for. I've got 5 books out right now, and but all of them $5, and I think my Ebola book is 100 pages. It's actually a pretty easy read. My survival book is like 200 pages, and that's the one thing on that one. A lot of people, when I'm at conferences, it's a 3-day conference, people will buy the book and they go, dude, I spent the whole night reading your book. I loved it. I couldn't put it down. And I've had multiple people tell me that
That's
because
awesome.
I write in a very relaxed, easy to understand, spell it out sort of way that
Yep.
people absorb really easy, and they just like they like my writing style. I'm okay. My spelling and grammar at times suck, but hey,
You're getting the message across,
I'm
and
getting the message across. My books are really easy to read. I challenge everybody to. I've got a book out there called well, actually all my books, but Israel, American God's Judgment. That's book 1, and then I have a follow-up book that was like an afterthought book called Past the Point of No Return. You guys want to know what's going on in America today, read those books, and it'll tell you what's going on and what to look forward for. But also, those were a lot of fun to write. And then I wrote that's getting a lot of response too. It's called My Name is Lucifer. And that's a pretty mind-blowing book.
what's that one about?
That one is about in Isaiah 14. If you look up the name Lucifer in the Hebrew, the Masoretic, I can't even say it, but the Jewish, but his name is Halal bin Shahar,
Right.
and Halal bin Shahar basically means crescent moon, morning star.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look up the word Shahar, do a Strong's lookup. It means crescent moon, and in that you'll find references to Gideon. And when he rode through and killed the enemies, he took the crescents off the necks of the camels, and that's something that's still done today in the Middle East. Is the Muslims will put crescent moons on ornaments on their animals. And then also I forget who, like Hezekiah or something, or one of the other warriors or something, took the crescents off the high places, and the crescents being those crescent moons up on top of roofs.
Oh, wow.
And stuff. And so a lot of people, oh wow, Islam's new. No, Islam is ancient.
Yeah.
And it's an ancient religion back from Babylon. And the thing is, so in this book, I point out that Satan's name has been right before our eyes throughout the ages. His name is Halal bin Shahar, crescent moon, morning star. And he doesn't change his name, he just changes his disguise. Back in Nimrod's time and Babylon time, he was Baal. After that, he became Moloch. After that, he became Zeus. After that, he became Apollo. After that, I mean, it's the same guy over and over again. He just changes the wrapping and changes the name. Today, his name is Allah. It's the same guy, crescent moon, morning star. And but in it, I point out right in front of our noses all these crescent moons and morning stars. And it's mind-blowing. When I was doing the research, all of it is like, man, it's everywhere, crescent moon, morning star. When you start looking at it, and because this book, it takes a long time to download to your Kindle because it's picture intensive. And I show pictures throughout history. I show different religions. I show different countries. I show all these things. They're all crescent moons and morning stars. And read some of the comments on that book on Amazon. And
Wow.
but people like, wow, man, insane book. In fact, I think one lady says I need to put it in print because it's incredible. But I have 5 books out there. They're all under $5. I published a Kindle. I'm probably going to do another book here soon. I'm feeling the need to do a Islam and Bible Prophecy 101 book.
Oh, that would be awesome.
so that people can understand these things. And for example, like what I was just telling you, Islam is not an old new religion. It's a very old religion. It's just, it's Lucifer. Lucifer's been around since the beginning of time,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of stuff. But I want to do like a Islam and Bible Prophecy 101, so that people can kind of get a grasp of this, because it's happening right now, right before our eyes. And it's just it's the how can you not read the Bible? Look down on the pages of your Bible, then look up and, well, what does it say? Revelations 24, the beheading of the Christians. Look up what's happening. Beheading of Christians. I mean, everything that we read in Scripture, Islam answers is the answer. You want a one world religion? Well, Islam's it. You want a one world, currency and financial thing? Islam has their own finance law.
Wow.
In Daniel, it talks about how the Antichrist will come in and change days. He'll change time and laws, or days and laws,
Right.
time and laws, and the world over is on Greenwich Mean Time. But if you're a Sharia compliant state or country, you go on what I call Mecca time. So instead of Greenwich Mean Time, as soon as you become Sharia, you now switch your clock to Mecca. And so when they come in, what's the first thing they do is they introduce Sharia law, and then they also change the days and times.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that Islam does, and it's interesting. You look at what Islam writes about their own, what's called the Mahdi, their good guy. I mean, you could look at their
lines right up with the Antichrist, doesn't it?
Lines right up with the Antichrist. Their good guy is our bad guy.
Yeah.
And so there's so much out there that and people just don't know it. All these things, and so Scripture is warning us of, basically, in a sense, it's the original mother of all harlot religions.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of Islam is not new. It's old. It's Baal worship reincarnated. It's Zeus worship reincarnated. It's Moloch reincarnated, and that's all it is. They just reincarnate it again for the next generation or whoever, and everything. Satan, Lucifer, has been with us all this time, and his name has been right in front of us all this time. So that's what that book is about. Go out and get it. I think that one's $5 too. All my books are like $5 and stuff, but.
Do you have a time frame that the Bible Prophecy and Islam 101 thing is going to be out?
I'm working on it right now. It's like all authors, and you've got your folder of projects in progress. It's at the top of my projects in progress list.
Wow.
And so. Go ahead.
Well, when you do get that out there, please contact me if I don't see it right away, because I'd love to have you back on the show to talk about that.
Yeah, that one I'll be doing. Gano's been good on my Ebola book. I think I've sold 275 copies since it's been out. And
that's great. It's only been out for a couple of months, hasn't it?
No, it's only been out for a couple of weeks.
Oh, really?
It's only been out for a month, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When you track, I'm still. In fact, it still hasn't been out for a whole month yet.
Wow.
Let me go here real quickly just to bring it up, but you selling on Kindle too, or you selling on Amazon?
Yeah.
The money ain't great.
No. No, the royalties are horrible for.
Yeah. So I'm coming up, because I released it August 7th. And here it is, September 5th. And I've sold about 250 copies, 270 copies about.
Wow, that's great. Well, that's all the more people that'll know what to do. That's awesome. Yeah, and I can definitely say, I've read it through. It is a very easy read, and I think, part of why I enjoyed it so much is you write a lot of the same what's the word, prose, maybe? the same kind of style as I do. I try to keep things as simple and easy to understand as possible. Even in my latest book, Quantum Creation, which is about integrating the Bible with quantum physics. But even in that, there's a way to write about those things that's simple and easy to understand. And everything that I do, I try to write like that. And that's
Yeah.
I love about this book. It was a really easy read. I think it maybe took me an hour or two to get through, and but that's not to say that it's lacking in information or anything, because it's not. It's packed full of information and useful tips that anybody can use and be better off for it. So I mean, I would definitely recommend it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's all my stuff is easy to read. I try to make it. I've really tried to not talk down to people, but I basically write to myself.
Yeah.
What do I want to know?
Yep.
And how do I want to hear it? Don't give me all this highfalutin stuff and all this other. Give me the brick and mortar. I mean, give me the the bones, bare bones stuff. I want to know it. And,
there you go. Yep.
Don't leave all the fluff at home. So.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That is awesome. Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead. I was going to say I've got to start going here. And
yeah,
so,
I was actually going to say the same thing. My wife just informed me that it is way past dinner time, being 10:15 p.m. where I am.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow!
But I had a late lunch, so it's totally fine. But I want to thank you so much for being on the show. This has been such a blessing, and it's been great to get to know you. And I'm really, really glad the show went as long as it did, because I thought this was going to be maybe an hour or hour and a half at most. But this had a lot more, took a lot more direction than I thought it was going to at the end there, and I'm really glad that it did. So I thank you for that, and thank you for being on the show, and we're going to have you on again sometime.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. Well, thank you so much, and good night, God bless, and bye-bye, and bye Bibles.
Absolutely. Amen. All right, so that was Ray Gano. Again, he's the executive producer of Prophazine. He gave you the website and his contact information there, and a preparedness and survival expert. He is the author of the book that we've been talking about tonight, Survive the Coming Storm, Ebola Crisis, Preparing Now Before It's Too Late. And he's also written, as he mentioned there, a number of books, something that we talked about throughout the show as well, came from his book, Survive the Coming Storm, The Value of a Preparedness Lifestyle. So, again, I can't recommend his work enough. It's very well written. I personally can't wait to read more. I'm going to be looking more into what he has out there, and I'm very excited about how this show went. So, as always, I want to thank you all so much for listening, and you have been listening to The Sharpening. I am your host, Josh Peck, and as always, take care, and God bless.